Chapter 27:11. On the way to All Heaven's territory, Night Sorrow couldn't help but recall everything that had happened after he met Wu Lingfei. If she hadn't stood up for him, he probably wouldn't have been able to overcome many difficulties. This was an unforgettable debt of gratitude. When he thought of how Ling Yun had crippled Yi Linghuan, Lin Piaomiao, and Yi Xiaoluo, Night Sorrow's eyes gradually turned cold. To him, this was the greatest humiliation of his cultivation life. Now, he was going to kill Ling Yun with his own hands and seek justice for Wu Lingfei and her family members who had their danshans destroyed. Night Sorrow. In All Heaven's territory, unless it's absolutely necessary, don't kill anyone. Long Tianqing, who was flying beside Night Sorrow, could sense Night Sorrow's killing intent and couldn't help but advise him. The All Heaven ruler had a very bad reputation. He was even said to be the most despicable ruler in the entire God realm. His character was even worse than the Dark Moon rulers. If he killed his subordinates in his territory, it would be very difficult to resolve the matter. Senior Tianqing, Night Sorrow isn't someone with a strong killing intent right now, but this Ling Yun must be killed. Otherwise, my Dao heart will become unstable. Hearing Long Tianqing's words, Yi Shang immediately replied with a frown. Long Tianqing saw Night Sorrow's expression and continued, I understand how you feel, but we have to think of a way to escape. Although Ruler Tianai and Ruler Qingyin take good care of you, they probably won't take action for you because of this matter. What if the All Heaven ruler is dissatisfied and wants to kill you? How will we deal with that? Long Tianqing sighed and continued, sigh. Although Ruler Tianai said that the rulers will retaliate if they attack you, if the All Heaven ruler doesn't do it himself, how will you deal with him if he sends out all his subordinates, the Divine King? Let's take it one step at a time. No matter what, I must kill Ling Yun. Night Sorrow said resolutely. At this time, in the clear sky pagoda, Night Sorrow's wives spoke one after another. Other than Jing Yun, all of them had experienced the events of that day, and all of them supported Night Sorrow to eliminate Ling Yun. It was obvious that Ling Yun wasn't just Night Sorrow's inner demon. He was also a target that the entire Night Moon dynasty had to kill. Otherwise, it would be difficult to wash away the humiliation of that day. Since everyone has already made up their minds, I won't say anything more. However, this is the territory of All Heaven, so it's not convenient for me to make a move. I hope you understand. Out of consideration for her family, she really couldn't make a move in All Heaven's territory. I don't want to bring a strong enemy to the dragons. Senior Tianqing, you're too polite. In fact, no one wants to provoke a mad dog. Night Sorrow nodded in agreement. But I have to kill Ling Yun. No one can stop me. This might be the reason why you have the disposition of a ruler, but I don't. Looking at the stubborn Night Sorrow, Long Tianqing smiled. She was clear that if one wanted to achieve greater heights, one's will must be incomparably firm. Night Sorrow happened to have that kind of character. Senior Tianqing, you flatter me. Actually, the so-called disposition of a ruler is all fake. I feel that there isn't a ruler who purely relies on talent to advance to a ruler. In the process of flying, Night Sorrow looked at the famous mountains below his feet. This was the first time he felt confident in his heart after coming to the divine realm. He said to the clansmen in the clear heaven pagoda, if there aren't any major changes, my Night Moon dynasty will establish a foothold in the divine realm. All this time, it's Night Sorrow's fault for making everyone follow me everywhere in the clear heaven pagoda. You brat, you're so outstanding. We see it in our eyes and feel gratified in our hearts. Don't think about anything, don't say anything, just follow your heart and move forward. You're the greatest pride of the Night Moon dynasty. We, your family, don't want to be a burden that binds you. Yi Linghuan said immediately. Night Sorrow's rise in the divine realm was so fast. As his grandfather, he was very gratified. It's a pity that we're in a hurry now. Otherwise, we can have a good drink. Night Sorrow's father, Yi Wuyo, said with a smile, looking cultured and refined. Haha. Then you guys drink a cup. It won't affect anything. At this time, Long Tianqing took out a king-grade flying divine artifact and invited Yi Linghuan and Yi Guiyou out. The three of them sat in the cabin, chatting and drinking. This was a leisure that Knight Sorrow had not experienced for a long time. He enjoyed it very much. Long Tianqing and Jin Ye entered the Clear Heaven Pagoda to recover from the injuries they suffered during the battle. Although the two of them were not seriously injured, they still needed time to heal. The most difficult thing to do is to not forget your roots. Now, you can be said to have your own reputation in the divine realm, but you didn't forget your Aunt Fei. This makes me very gratified. To me, you're invincible under the heavens, not as benevolent as ruling the world. Yi Guiyou raised his wine cup and said a sentence. Then, he looked at Yi Linghuan and said, "Father suffered a few days ago. This unfilial child salutes you." Haha. The pain of the physical body the last time is nothing at all. But the pain in my heart must be returned with an eye for an eye. Let's toast. Yi Linghuan said a sentence with a smile, raised his wine cup, and downed it. Grandfather, rest assured. Grandson will completely seek justice for everyone. Those who humiliate others will be humiliated by others. Ling Yun can't escape this calamity. Knight Sorrow, who similarly raised his wine cup, said a sentence and prepared to toast. Chatting and drinking with his grandfather and father was something that he had not experienced for a long time. The atmosphere made him enjoy it very much. Boom! But just as Knight Sorrow placed the wine cup by his lips and prepared to drink it, Long Tianqing's king-grade flying divine artifact suddenly suffered an attack. The entire divine artifact shook. Knight Sorrow, who was caught off guard, was splashed with wine. Who is it? Knight Sorrow, who was originally enjoying the atmosphere, immediately stood up angrily. The three of you can scram, but you have to leave the king-grade divine artifact behind. Knight Sorrow walked out of the inner cabin of the flying divine artifact. When he stood outside, he saw 13 Sir Gods in front of him. The 13 Sir Gods had a very strong murderous aura. Clearly, they were not kind people. One of the Sir Gods, who had a scar face, immediately shouted when he saw Knight Sorrow, Yi Linghuan, and Yi Guiyou walk out. Clearly, they knew that Knight Sorrow and the other two were the only ones in the king-grade divine artifact. Hence, they had wantonly intercepted them. How did they do it? I didn't sense anyone using the power of God's soul. Thinking of this, Knight Sorrow was suddenly curious about the 13 fierce-looking people in front of him. He wanted to know how they could detect the internal situation of the flying divine artifact without using their God's soul. He said, "Tell me, how did you determine that there are only the three of us in the flying divine artifact? As long as you say that you offended me, I will let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, I'm afraid you will suffer." Ha ha ha. Brothers, I didn't hear wrongly, right? Hearing Knight Sorrow's words, the 13 of them all laughed. Chapter 27:12. Ha ha ha. The ignorant are truly fearless. The leading Sir God laughed coldly. The smell of blood on his body was thicker than the others. Clearly, he was an existence that had struggled in the sea of blood. The other Sir Gods also started laughing maniacally. A middle-level Sir God with a protruding mouth and monkey cheek said, "Not to mention a low-level Sir God like you, even a low-level divine king would have to pay a price to leave after entering the array of the 13 eagles of Yunling." Array? Hearing this, Knight Sorrow opened the eye of the sea serpent and observed his surroundings. However, he did not find any traces of an array nearby. He could not help but be puzzled. Haha. Another ignorant hothead. Seeing that Knight Sorrow did not find any clues, the scarred Sir God immediately mocked him. He was ranked 4th among the 13 and was known as the 4th Master of Yunling. This seems to be an array formed naturally by heaven and earth. Its power is uncertain. At this moment, Long Tianqing, who was in the Clear Sky Pagoda, reminded him. Relatively speaking, she was more knowledgeable and had dabbled in all aspects. I see. This place should be called Yunling. Hearing this, Night Sorrow could not help but look further away. He discovered that the surrounding 100,000 miles of mountains pierced the clouds. The terrain had indeed formed an array. An array formed by the momentum of heaven and earth is indeed mysterious. However, how do they control it? Night Sorrow, who was observing, could not help but be puzzled. At the same time, he was also guessing the effect of the array in front of him. At this moment, the second sister of the 13 eagles of Yunling, who was also the only female present, smiled and said, "You men really love to show off. Every time a fat sheep comes, you have to let it observe the array. In my opinion, we should just kill it directly. A king-level ascension artifact is extraordinarily precious. Second sister, don't forget that person's instructions." The eldest brother of the 13 eagles of Yunling glanced at the woman beside him and said, "Now that we are sure that they do not have the foresight, let's do it. As the saying goes, even a lion uses its full strength to catch a rabbit. Let's attack together and kill the 3 in front of us." Ha ha ha. Where did these 3 come from? Can anyone below the Sir God be considered human? The fourth brother of the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles laughed heartily and took out a saber from his spatial magic tool. He said, "I'll kill that divine monarch. Don't snatch it from me." So what you're saying is, with so many of us here, we'll kill 2 ants? Hearing fourth brother Yunling's words, the others were immediately dissatisfied. The woman who was ranked second said disdainfully, "What are you thinking, Scarface? Ha ha ha. Then let's rely on our own abilities and strike first to gain the advantage." The scar-faced Yunling fourth laughed and decided to make his move. "Father, grandfather, you guys enter the vast heaven pagoda. I'll deal with these people." Although Night Sorrow was not afraid of the sudden appearance of so many divine lords, he did not wish for his father and grandfather to be accidentally injured. At this moment, Jean Nye said, "Brother Night Sorrow, let me fight. There are more than 10 divine lords and they are in the enemy's array formation. They might have some special means. Brother Jean Nye, you'd better watch the battle with peace of mind in the vast heaven pagoda. I want to test my true strength. In the future, unless it's a last resort situation, I won't use Tianyun Bao again." After replying to Jean Nye, Night Sorrow unleashed a hand of cleaving heaven and earth at Cloud Ridge fourth brother. Now that he advanced to the Divine Lord realm, he displayed the splitting heaven splitting earth hand even more smoothly. The power was clearly different too. With a slap like this, the fiendish Yunling fourth was directly smacked flying. Not good. This low-ranked Divine Lord is a little strong. Being directly smacked flying by Night Sorrow, Yunling fourth immediately gave a loud roar. Night Sorrow's palm made him feel like he was facing the Divine King. The disparity in strength even made him feel despair. Haha. How strong can a low-ranked Divine Lord be? I think that it's because you haven't fought for several decades, your strength declined. Seeing Yunling fourth suffer a loss right away, Yunling's second mother started laughing disdainfully. "Second sister, don't be careless. He's really very strong." Seeing many brothers laughing, not placing Night Sorrow in their eyes at all, Yunling fourth immediately said in a great rage. "Haha. Fourth brother is really interesting. After suffering a loss, he's starting to find excuses." Yunling eldest brother also laughed. At this point, they still did not take Night Sorrow seriously. One of them even teased, "You're not bad at all. You've beaten our fourth brother to such a state. We're very happy. Maybe we'll let you off today." "Let me off? You guys are really overjoyed." Night Sorrow smiled, then took out the Samsara heavenly halberd and prepared to attack again. King grade divine artifact. There's a king grade divine artifact. This low-ranked divine lord doesn't look simple. Seeing that Night Sorrow's flying artifact was king grade, the Samsara heavenly halberd that he took out was also king grade, the originally arrogant Yunling's second mother's expression became slightly more serious. One of the people who had just teased Night Sorrow laughed and said, "As long as we activate the array, we can even deal with the low-ranked divine king. Why should we be afraid of a low-ranked divine lord?" That's true. Yunling's second mother nodded and ordered, no matter what, since he's not the fated one, let's attack. Let's finish him off first. 2 king-grade divine artifacts are rare treasures. All right. Attack. He can injure fourth brother with one attack, his strength should not be simple. Everyone, pay more attention. Eldest Yunling said, then took out a 7-foot rake from his spatial artifact and slammed it toward Night Sorrow. Seeing that their eldest brother had attacked, the other divine lords stopped talking and used their own abilities to attack Night Sorrow. After advancing to Divine Lord, I wonder how powerful the Green Rock's soul-splitting roar will be. Facing the siege of 12 divine lords, Night Sorrow immediately used the Green Rock's soul-splitting roar's third roar, Break Reincarnation. After all, this was a group attack move, and the effect of group attacks was very good. Just as he roared, Night Sorrow used the Samsara Heavenly Halberd to use the Roaring Flames Demon Subduing. Both moves were group attacks, and both had the effect of attacking one soul. The 12 divine lords who were attacking Night Sorrow were all sent flying when he used the Green Rock soul-splitting roar. When the Roaring Flames Demon Subduing was used, the weakest few even wailed in pain. It was only now that everyone realized how terrifying Night Sorrow was. Yunling's second mother immediately shouted, "Eldest brother, this divine lord is too strong. Quick, activate the heaven and earth array." "You don't have to tell me that." Eldest Yunling, who was defeated by Night Sorrow in one move, was an invincible divine lord ranked 73rd on the divine lord list. He could not even withstand one roar from Night Sorrow, so he naturally knew how strong his opponent was. As he spoke, he silently recited a mysterious incantation. The incantation he chanted turned into runes and floated into the sky. Chapter 27:13. The originally layered mountain peaks changed appearance in an instant, seemingly transforming into one heavenly pillar after another, spanning between heaven and earth. Above the enormous heavenly pillars was a cloudless azure sky for thousands of miles. On the ground, the originally lush green grass and trees were all gone without a trace. Replacing them were massive numbers of demonic beasts. Seems like the plants all became demonic beasts. Taking the scene before her eyes, Long Tianqing immediately opened her mouth to warn. "Yes. I can see through their main bodies." The Night Sorrow who activated the clam dragon eye answered. Although the surrounding environment changed drastically, he did not panic at all. But right at this time, Night Sorrow suddenly felt that the surrounding heaven and earth was absorbing the divine essence energy within his body. He immediately asked in puzzlement, "What's going on?" "The surrounding heaven and earth is actually absorbing the power within my body." "What? In that case, this place is the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Grand Array?" Hearing Night Sorrow's words, the Long Tianqing inside the vast heaven pagoda immediately exclaimed in shock. "What's the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Grand Array?" Night Sorrow immediately asked in puzzlement. The Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Grand Array is a special array formed by Heaven and Earth's grand momentum. Normally, what's below this kind of array formation isn't simple. Long Tianqing explained and continued, for example, a Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Grand Array that appeared once had a sovereign corpse below. In the end, this sovereign corpse virtually revived. At that time, the sovereigns of that era made a move together and thoroughly annihilated it. In that case, it's very likely that there's something below here too. Night Sorrow asked a sentence and displayed the Samsara Heavenly Halberd without hesitation, stabbing a spear towards all of the Cloud Ridge 13 eagles. Each spear was a forbidden spear. Having your divine essence energy absorbed by the array formation and still dare to display your spear art like this, you're really not afraid of being sucked dry. Seeing Night Sorrow unleash his spear so ferociously, the Cloud Ridge boss immediately mocked. He was clear what was going on with this array formation. "You'd better worry about whether or not you'll die." The Night Sorrow who stabbed out 13 spears did not thoroughly deal the killing blow, but the attacks were very ferocious. Among the Cloud Ridge 13 eagles, only the boss was an invincible divine lord on the Divine Lord proclamation. He barely managed to receive this attack. As for the others, they were no match for Night Sorrow and were sent flying one after another. The one who was most seriously injured was the fourth brother of the Cloud Ridge, who had been severely injured before. After being sent flying again, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of old blood and said, "This time, you all believe me. We've kicked an iron plate." Not simple indeed. The deity realm did not have such a powerful divine sovereign. Could it be that the divine lord is deliberately hiding his strength? Yunling's second mother, who was also injured, asked with a puzzled expression. "He is a divine lord, it's just that his strength is too strong." Big Boss Yunling's expression changed drastically as he said, "If I'm not wrong, it's very likely that he's Night Sorrow who recently rose to fame in the divine realm." Night Sorrow? The last time I heard of him, he was still a high god. The person we are facing now is at least a divine lord. Yunling's second mother said with a look of disbelief. "What's impossible about that? For someone under Hegemontianya's protection, breaking through is as easy as drinking cold water." Big Boss Yunling originally had a trump card that he had not used. However, after recalling some of the legends, he immediately gave up on resisting. Cupping his fists, he said, "We, the 13 eagles of the Cloud Ridge, were blind to have offended you. Tell us what to do, we admit defeat." As he spoke, he deactivated the heaven and earth energy gathering array. "You surrendered so easily?" Night Sorrow did not expect the fierce-looking 13 eagles to surrender so easily. He could not help but laugh coldly. "If I remember correctly, you were prepared to kill me. What do you think we should do? Since we admit defeat, we are prepared to pay a certain price. If you need anything, just tell us and we can discuss it." Big Boss Yunling said politely. "Bringing it up for discussion? Isn't that bargaining? Dream on." Night Sorrow scolded and continued, "First, teach me the origin of the array and the incantation." "No. This cannot be exposed. Otherwise, we will die." Big Boss Yunling immediately retorted. "If you don't tell me, you will die immediately. If you tell me, I may help you block the backlash." When Night Sorrow said this, he released a dense amount of merit power, showing that he was a merit divine lord and that he was a man of his word. "You are Night Sorrow?" Big Boss Yunling immediately asked when he saw Night Sorrow release his merit power. "That's me. You can tell me what you want to know. No matter what, I will protect you." The 13 eagles of the Cloud Ridge reeked of blood. Night Sorrow originally thought that it was because they had killed too many people. However, after the array was activated, he realized that it was because there was a dense smell of blood below. The thick smell of blood on their bodies was because they had cultivated here for a long time and had accidentally absorbed it into their bodies. As such, Night Sorrow determined that there was a very dense smell of blood here. "Big Boss, why don't you tell us? What if he can save us?" At this moment, second mother Yunling suddenly advised. "No. That senior once said that we can only tell this matter to the fated person." Big Boss Yunling shook his head and said, he did not recognize this array. "He is not the fated person. If we tell him, we will definitely die." "Big Boss." Second mother Yunling wanted to say something but did not say it. "What is the fated person that you are talking about?" Night Sorrow heard everyone's conversation and immediately asked. "To be able to say the name of the array is the fated person. You are definitely not. The other two with you are also not." Big Boss Yunling sighed. "Although I didn't recognize what kind of formation it was, a friend of mine said the name of the formation." Night Sorrow immediately remembered Long Tianqing's words and asked, "Is this array called the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array?" "Yes. That's the name. Where is your friend?" When Big Boss Yunling heard this name, his eyes immediately lit up. "Senior Tianqing, come out." Night Sorrow immediately summoned Long Tianqing out from the clear sky pagoda. "Divine King? You actually have the Divine King in your spatial artifact." Seeing Night Sorrow summon the Divine King Long Tianqing out, Big Boss Yunling was stunned. "Divine King or Divine Monarch, there is no difference to you. Either way, I can crush you. Night Sorrow said domineeringly and continued, you can tell Senior Tianqing about this place. Senior. What made you tell me the name of this formation? Big Boss Yunling looked at Long Tianqing and asked nervously. I said it. Long Tianqing said casually, but there was a sense of dignity in her voice. To ordinary divine monarchs, the divine king did indeed have a lot of pressure. It's good that it's you. Quick, follow me and kneel down to our benefactor. After Long Tianqing confirmed it, Big Boss Yunling immediately knelt down and kowtowed. What is the meaning of this? Chapter 27:14. We have been waiting here for more than 10 reincarnations, waiting for you to save us. First Brother Yunling knelt on the ground and bowed sincerely. Back then, we were captured by a terrifying existence. We helped guard this place and were unable to leave. It was not until more than 10 reincarnations ago that a powerful senior appeared here. He instructed us to wait for the fated person. Terrifying existence? What happened? Tell me from the beginning to the end. Long Tianqing signaled the 13 eagles of Yunling to stand up and speak. After First Brother Yunling stood up, he looked at Second Mother Yunling and said, Second Mother, you are eloquent. Why don't you tell us? Yes, Big Brother. Second Mother Yunling bowed to Long Tianqing and said, we did not know each other at first. We were rogue cultivators scattered all over the divine realm. However, we were captured by a terrifying existence who failed the sovereign tribulation and brought here. When he was about to die, he activated the heaven and earth great formation and asked us to guard this place and wait for him to wake up. You mean that there is a terrifying existence who failed the sovereign tribulation below? Is he dead or alive? Long Tianqing frowned and asked. In fact, this matter did not have much to do with her and Night Sorrow. Moreover, they had urgent matters to attend to. After all, it was better to save Wu Lingfei as soon as possible. She did lose her life at that time. However, we still feel that she is not completely dead. After so many reincarnations, I am afraid that she is not far from being revived. Second Mother Yunling said in a low voice. Long Tianqing and Night Sorrow frowned slightly when they heard this. She added, both of you look like kind people. Please save us. We have no choice but to help him guard this array formation. However, from your actions, it seems that you are looking forward to the battle. Night Sorrow said coldly when he thought of Fourth Brother Yunling and the others' reactions when they met him. Instantly, the atmosphere became cold. First Brother Yunling saw that the situation was not good and quickly explained, actually, it is not our nature to be like this. It is just that after staying in this formation for too long, it will naturally make us irritable. We cannot die even if we want to, so we can only endure it. What do you mean by that? Long Tianqing asked in puzzlement when she heard this. In this formation, even if we are killed, we will be reborn after 30,000 years. This is also the reason why we have always maintained 13 people. Yunling explained angrily, it looks good, but in fact, it is a great torture for us. This also caused a huge change in everyone's temperament. You are pitiful people. But from the sound of it, he should have done a lot of evil. Long Tianqing gazed at them and said, give me a reason to save all of you. We can swear that after being saved, we will serve our benefactor forever and never do anything evil again. Boss Yunling knelt on the ground again and said. Wu. However, before Long Tianqing could respond, many demonic beasts, which had been transformed from plants, pounced on them. These overwhelming demonic beasts didn't attack Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing. Instead, they pounced on the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles. In the face of these demonic beasts, although they kept resisting, they were still crazily bitten. Not long after, he was bitten beyond recognition. Let's save them. They look too miserable. Long Tianqing couldn't bear to see the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles suffer such inhumane torture. Night Sorrow looked at Boss Yunling and said, weren't you the one who activated the formation and turned these plants into demonic beasts? Why didn't you stop the formation? I didn't have the ability to stop the formation. I could only wait. They didn't attack us in the past. Boss Yunling, who had demonic beasts of all sizes crawling on his body, said intermittently. It seems that they were left behind by the person below to counter you. When they noticed that you were acting strangely, they immediately attacked. Night Sorrow made his own judgment and sighed. Although I feel sorry for Auntie Faye, I can't bear to see them being tortured like this. Senior Tianqing, let's do something. At the very least, we should help them get rid of these demonic beasts. These demonic beasts are too cruel. If we don't do something, it won't make sense. Long Tianqing looked at the bloodthirsty demonic beasts and said hesitantly, but how can we help? Let me do it. Night Sorrow said as he gathered the power of merit and shot it at the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles. The power of merit split into 13 dragons and wrapped around the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles, purifying the demonic beasts that were wreaking havoc. The demonic beasts were purified by the power of merit and turned into many tiny bits of power of merit, which were absorbed by Night Sorrow. Although there were many of them, they didn't help Night Sorrow much. Thank you, benefactor. After being saved, the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles immediately knelt down and bowed to Night Sorrow. At this point, they didn't care who was the fated one. What is the chant to activate the formation? Night Sorrow, who had saved the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles, asked. Hearing this, Boss Yunling looked troubled and said, Benefactor, although I can activate the formation, I can't recite or write the chant. I see. Night Sorrow originally wanted to learn the chant of this natural formation, but he gave up when he heard this. He said, I have urgent matters to attend to now. Since you have already gotten rid of these demonic beasts, wait for us here. After I finish what I have to do, I will come back and save you. However, as you said, after being saved, you have to work for me and not do anything evil. Of course, of course. Hearing Yi Shang's words, everyone from the 13 Yunling Eagles immediately revealed a trace of anticipation. Yunling Old 4, who had been injured by Yi Shang, nodded and bowed. Great benefactor Yi, I won't hide it from you. It won't be easy to save us, but at the same time, you can obtain rare resources. Resources? What's going on? Night Sorrow was puzzled. That terrifying existence was very rich when she was alive. If we can find her corpse. Boss Yunling started to explain. Hearing this, Night Sorrow immediately interrupted him and said, a gentleman earns money in a proper way. Let's forget about digging graves. Then we will wait for the two benefactors to come again. Boss Yunling wasn't a person who dilly-dallied. After saying this, he sent Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing off. As for the others, they were reluctant to part with them. Don't be like this, everyone. We will be back. Long Tianqing sighed when she saw everyone's pitiful eyes and continued on with Night Sorrow. Chapter 27:15. Long Tianqing looked at Night Sorrow and said, You're saying that the divine king who failed to break through to the sovereign realm isn't actually dead? Instead, he's using this formation to recover his strength? I do have that feeling. Night Sorrow, who was also flying into the distance, nodded in confirmation. He continued, Just now in the formation, I sensed a trace of a strange aura from those small demonic beasts. Those little monsters seemed to be his eyes. If he's really close to the sovereign realm, even if we want to save him, I'm afraid we won't be able to, Long Tianqing said with some disappointment. She didn't want to break her promise, but in comparison, her life was still more important. There was no need to sacrifice herself and Night Sorrow just to save the 13 Yunling Eagles. I feel that instead of saving the 13 Yunling Eagles, it's better to save the being below. Under Long Tianqing's astonished gaze, Night Sorrow said, I have some conjectures, but I can't be sure yet. Once we save Auntie Faye, we can confirm them. If our conjectures are correct, saving that being might be a good thing. Okay. Since you have the same idea, I'll cooperate. Long Tianqing nodded. Although she didn't know why Night Sorrow wanted to save the being below, she was still prepared to cooperate. I'll cooperate as well. Jean Mia also said from within the clear sky pagoda. However, he then added, but I only know how to use brute force. I don't know anything about mysterious formations. You don't need to know anything about formations. Night Sorrow smiled in response to Jean Mia and summoned Long Tianqing's king-grade flying divine artifact again. However, after this incident, Yi Linghuan and Yi Wuyo didn't come out to drink anymore. After passing by several bustling cities, Night Sorrow followed Long Tianqing to Lingyun City in the Azura Divine Realm. Lingyun was now very powerful. The city he controlled was even more powerful than the Purple Mansion Divine Lord, who he had once tried to curry favor with. His status was second only to the Divine King. Send someone to inform Lingyun Divine Lord that Night Sorrow has come to challenge him. When they arrived at the entrance of the Lingyun City Lord Mansion, Long Tianqing immediately asked someone to pass the message. There's no need to pass the message. I have already sensed your arrival. Before the guards could move, Ling Yun's figure appeared in front of Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing. Ling Yun. I'm here to find you. Let's settle what happened back then. Night Sorrow said with a fake smile. Ling Yun was one of the few people he hated so much. Are you Night Sorrow? The creator of heaven and earth was pretty strong. But if you want to challenge me, you're definitely courting death. No divine lord is a match for me. Ling Yun said arrogantly before bursting into laughter. At the same time, Luli, who had appeared with him before, slowly walked out of the city lord's mansion. Seeing Night Sorrow appear, she smiled and said, I didn't expect that your strength increased so quickly. In just a few short years, he has already grown from a feather god to a divine lord. You're not slow either. You're also at the divine lord realm. Night Sorrow glanced at Luli and said with a somewhat complicated expression. Speaking of which, Ling Yun was prepared to attack him back then and kill him directly. At the crucial moment, it was Lu Li's one sentence that made Ling Yun stop, indirectly saving his life. However, it was also precisely because of her that Wu Lingfei was abducted here. In reality, the Wu Lingfei that we brought is also close to Divine Lord. Lu Li said with a smile and continued, as long as she consummates with the City Lord, she can break through to Divine Lord through dual cultivation. Bastard. What did you say? Hearing the word consummate, Night Sorrow immediately flew into a rage. Ha ha ha. What she said is exactly what I want to do. Wu Lingfei's talent is outstanding. She's the best furnace to help me increase my strength. Ling Yun laughed arrogantly. Originally, I wanted to keep you for a while longer. You're courting death yourself. Where are we fighting? You should remember what you said before, right? Night Sorrow opened his mouth and repeated what Long Tianqing said. This matter of arranging a battle with you was determined long ago. This seat naturally won't go back on my word. A trace of evil intent was revealed between Ling Yun's brows. He said coldly, you're merely a dog that this seat spared. Now, you've become something. A little interesting. Our decisive battle is a month later. Because this seat will make use of this 1 month's time to invite all kinds of honored guests. Let all of them witness how I'll torture and kill you, the creator of heaven and earth. Okay. I'll wait for you for a month. A month later, I'll take your life. Night Sorrow replied coldly, then looked at Long Tianqing and said, Senior Tianqing, let's go. Okay. Let's find an inn to stay. Long Tianqing nodded her head. Following that, the two people stayed in a inn called Vermilion Bird Inn. The environment here was very good. Night Sorrow entered the vast heaven pagoda for a period of time after this and carried out the final sprint. In the contact earlier, he discovered that Ling Yun was somewhat different from before. Not only did his strength become much stronger, his aura also changed somewhat. It was as if there was another person hidden in his body, giving people a very sinister feeling. What Night Sorrow did not expect was that there were still 10 days until the showdown. Azurites suddenly came to the Vermilion Bird Inn to find Night Sorrow. What business do you have? After Night Sorrow got the message, he walked out of the vast heaven pagoda to see the other party. I came to tell you that the current Ling Yun is already not the Ling Yun back then. Or rather, only half of the Ling Yun back then. Azurite's brows carried a trace of sorrow. What do you mean by this? The other party's words were roughly the same as Night Sorrow's perception. He hurriedly opened his mouth to ask. In reality, this matter of dealing with you, Ling Yun, was the one being used from beginning to end. Back then, he plundered your source reward under someone else's instructions. After plundering your destiny back, he was completely controlled by the other party. Azurite said with some hatred. Why are you telling me this? Night Sorrow asked expressionlessly. Azurite sighed and said, although Ling Yun isn't some good person, he's my husband after all. I, Azurite, don't have the ability to take revenge. I only hope that you can kill that person. At present, it looks like you're the only one who has a chance to kill him. However, his strength has already surpassed your imagination. I'm here to give you a reminder. Night Sorrow nodded his head and asked, strength beyond imagination, what does this mean? That person is one of the strategists of the All-Heaven Sovereign Manor. His methods can be said to be heavenly. When fighting with him, the slightest carelessness will cause one to fall for it. I think that this 1 month's time is him setting up a formation. Or perhaps he's brewing some conspiracy. Azurite voiced her judgment. Chapter 27:16. This. I'm not sure either, but he's definitely not as simple as you think. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's a genius in formations and divination. You're on your own. Luli said one last sentence and prepared to turn and leave. At this moment, Night Sorrow called out to her and asked with a trembling voice, can you tell me how Aunt Faye has been all these years? Because that existence wants to nurture her into the strongest furnace in the god realm, so she never lacks treasures and cultivation resources. Therefore, her strength has been increasing rapidly. It won't be long before she can break through to Monarch God. Luli explained with a smile, besides, no one has touched her virginity. Scram. Don't use these words on my Aunt Faye. Hearing Luli teasing Wu Ling concubine, Night Sorrow immediately rebuked her. To him, Aunt Faye had always been the most sacred existence in his heart, and no one could blaspheme her. Humph. You're turning your back on me. After being scolded by Night Sorrow, Luli left the Vermilion Bird Tower with an unhappy expression. After leaving the Vermilion Bird Tower, she immediately returned to the city lord's residence and walked into Ling Yun's room. How is it? How important do you think Wu Ling concubine is to him? The moment Luli entered the room, Ling Yun stripped her naked and pressed her onto the bed. I leaked everything according to your instructions. He should be very important to that Wu Ling concubine. I only slightly mentioned the matter of my virgin body and he couldn't take it. Luli explained faintly. Hee. As long as anyone's weakness is caught, they will become extremely weak. In the battle a few days later, he will lose without a fight. A cold smile appeared on Ling Yun's face. As Luli panted, she was puzzled. But Luli doesn't understand. Why did you say that you used Ling Yun and already controlled his body? Hee. Luli, you don't understand how painful it is to hide a secret in one's heart. The military advisor who was controlling Ling Yun's body, as he wantonly played with Luli, he sighed. In fact, I want everyone to know that Ling Yun is dead, and I, Mu Tianlai, am the master of this body. Then let's make it public. In any case, Lord Luo Tian and you are as close as brothers. He definitely won't care about this matter. Luli said in a sweet voice. It can't be made public. This military advisor cannot let anyone know that I have successfully cultivated the god-level clone technique. This body can only belong to Ling Yun, not me. Mu Tianlai, who had completely taken control of Ling Yun's body and turned it into an avatar, laughed coldly. Luli, who was pressed under his body, suddenly shivered from the coldness and couldn't help but cry out in surprise. At the same time, in the Vermilion Bird Pavilion, Night Sorrow, Long Tianqing, and Jean Nia were discussing the battle. For this battle, Night Sorrow was very confident in his own strength. After all, he had Tianyun Bao. If he used it, he did not fear any divine lord. But if he was forced to hand over Tianyun Bao, he would definitely be targeted by the great hegemon of all heaven. The great hegemon of all heaven was definitely the weakest of the 7 great hegemons. If he targeted Night Sorrow, even hegemon Tianai would find it difficult to protect him. I think you should rely on your strength to fight. Tianyun Bao, don't use it if you can help it. After all, the opponent is only a divine lord. He can't be that strong. Long Tianqing, who had analyzed the situation, thought of the great hegemon of all heaven's character and reminded him. It's decided then. But we still need to make other preparations. After all, this is the enemy's territory. We can't be too greedy. Night Sorrow said. As the saying goes, a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. It's better if we set up some teleportation formations in and outside the city. Otherwise, we'll be trapped in the city. If the enemy is the great hegemon of all heaven, I'm afraid the teleportation formations won't be of any use. Jean Nia immediately said when he heard Night Sorrow's words. It won't be the great hegemon of all heaven. After all, hegemon Tianai said that he would protect me. Even if it's the great hegemon of all heaven, it will be his subordinate. Night Sorrow looked at Jean Nia and said. Then, he took out the map he had bought recently and said, I marked the points on the map. Now that you're basically a free man, set up the teleportation formations at these points. Okay. I'll do it right away. Jean Nia didn't know what Night Sorrow's intentions were, but he still did as he was told. Why did you wait until today to let Jean Nia set up the teleportation formations? Long Tianqing asked suspiciously after Jean Nia left. The earlier we set them up, the easier it is for us to be discovered. Night Sorrow explained. The current problem is that we can't invite any powerful spectators. After I defeat Ling Yun, the divine king of Azura and the others might not care about their reputation and make things difficult for us. They might not even hand over Auntie Fei. Your worries aren't unfounded. Long Tianqing nodded. In order to ensure that nothing goes wrong, I'll invite a few people of status to oversee the situation. Take care of yourself for the next few days. Thank you, Senior Tianqing. Night Sorrow knew that Long Tianqing was an important member of the dragons and had considerable influence in the divine world. Jean Nia and Long Tianqing left one after the other, and the day of the duel drew closer and closer. With 3 days left, Night Sorrow stopped cultivating and accompanied his wives in Vermilion Bird Pavilion to chat and drink. Sikong Chuyu and the others were very familiar with Night Sorrow's strength, so they were very confident and didn't worry about him at all. However, when it came to Wu Lingfei, they were a little melancholic. On the day of the duel, Lapis Lazuli appeared in Vermilion Bird Pavilion. When she saw Night Sorrow, she smiled and said, I wonder if you're ready? This kind of thing is decided by strength. There's nothing to prepare. Lead the way. Night Sorrow replied. He didn't even know where the location of the duel was. Hearing this, Lioli smiled. The duel will be held at the largest gambling arena in Lingyun City. It's usually used for settling disputes. Does this mean that there will be a lot of spectators? Night Sorrow asked. If there were a lot of spectators, the chances of Lingyun tampering with the duel would be lower. There will be a lot of spectators, and the dealer will even open bets for your duel. Lioli explained on the way to the gambling arena. It seems like Lingyun doesn't just want to defeat me. He also wants to use this matter to make money. Night Sorrow said nonchalantly. At this time, Yang Lei, who was in the spatial artifact, suddenly said unhappily, Little 13, stay away from that vixen. I'm annoyed just looking at her. Okay. Ninth senior sister. Night Sorrow quickly replied and distanced himself from Lioli. When they arrived, Ling Yun's figure was already in the gambling arena. Where is Auntie Fei? Chapter 27:17. Hee hee. It doesn't matter where Wu Lingfei is. What's important is that you will definitely die today. There is no need to know this. Ling Yun, who was controlled by Mu Tianlai, said coldly. He had set up the bets very unbalanced. Those who bet on Night Sorrow winning would get a payout of 10. Those who bet on him would only get a payout of 2. The goal was to let most people bet on Night Sorrow winning. Since Senior Tianqing has already agreed with you on the terms of the bet, I hope you can follow the agreement and bring Aunt Fei here. Night Sorrow's expression had already turned ugly. He had not been so angry in a long time. Long Tianqing had already said it clearly. She had agreed with the other party that as long as Night Sorrow could defeat Ling Yun in the duel, he could take Wu Lingfei away. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Ling Yun, who was controlled by Mu Tianlai, laughed and said, "If I lose, the bet is to release Aunt Fei." What if you lose? You have not said a word about the bet you will pay if you lose. Why should I pay anything? Long Tianqing had gone to invite her and had not returned yet. Mu Tianlai shamelessly denied it. You want me to pay the bet? Very well. If you win, I will give you a king-grade artifact. In addition to a king-grade divine pulse. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said. This kind of bet was simply a sky-high price for a divine lord. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, many of the audience exclaimed. A king-grade artifact was fine, but a king-grade divine pulse was something that even the divine king could not obtain. I didn't expect you to be a rich man. Hee hee, the bet is good. Ling Yun, who was controlled by Mu Tianlai, did not react when he heard the king-grade artifact. But when he heard the king-grade divine pulse, his eyes lit up. However, after pondering for a moment, he smiled and said, "It is good stuff. But bartering is like exchanging people. If you want to win a peerless beauty, the bet naturally needs to be a peerless beauty. It is not enough for you to just pay the price. I heard that you attended a banquet at Vermilion Bird Restaurant a few days ago and were surrounded by many beauties. In addition to the resources, if you add 2 or more of them as the bet, I will agree to your request." Ling Yun, you're courting death. Stop dreaming, there's no way I'm going to bet that much. Yi Shang's expression was gloomy as he coldly replied. Although he was confident that he would win, he couldn't use his wife as a wager. Husband. Bet with him, I believe you. At this time, Datura walked out from inside the vast heaven pagoda right away. Seeing the cold and elegant woman appear, the crowd immediately whistled. In an instant, the audience went crazy. After that, Xueshi also walked out and said, "Husband, you have absolute confidence in winning. Let's bet with him." "No. This is an insult to you." Night Sorrow scolded, "Hurry up and go back." Husband. As long as we can save Auntie Fei, what is this bit of humiliation to us? Xueshi had a determined look on her face as she said, "Besides, you're confident that you'll win. We're just watching from the outside. What's wrong with that?" Haha. Good. Both beauties were peerless. I like it. The Ling Yun controlled by Mu Tianlai laughed in a very sharp and ear-piercing voice. This divine king likes it too. It's just that this Night Sorrow is very difficult to deal with. You have to be careful. Right at this time, a cold voice came over. It was actually the Azura divine king who arrived. He had encountered Night Sorrow before and was clear that Night Sorrow had many tricks up his sleeve. He was very difficult to deal with. Her. I'll be careful. The Ling Yun controlled by Mu Tianlai laughed out confidently. His main body strength was even above the Azura divine king's. Combat experience, movement technique, ultimate arts, etc., were all very strong. It was just that Ling Yun's body could not be fully unleashed. Otherwise, he would be the genuine divine king. Husband, just agree to him. We can't let Auntie Fei suffer anymore. Night Sorrow kept not opening his mouth to agree to the bet. Sekom Chuyu, who was originally inside the vast heaven pagoda, also stood up and said, I also agree to be the wager. I'll wager too. Following that, Lin Piaomiao also stood up. 4 people came out one after another. Yang Lei, Aoi, and Jing Yun also stood up, not to be outdone. Night Sorrow's 7 wives all stood up. The audience present went even crazier and whistled. The Ling Yun controlled by Mu Tianlai mocked, Night Sorrow, you can't be worse than a woman, right? They don't even care, what are you afraid of? Night Sorrow, agree to him. I won't let him refuse to admit defeat. Night Sorrow still did not answer. At this time, Long Tianqing's voice suddenly sounded. Following that, she and another person appeared in the gambling arena. This is Long Wushu. Seeing Long Tianqing, Mu Tianlai was still very calm. But seeing the other person, his face instantly turned ugly. The person who appeared was actually one of the 2 experts of the dragons, Long Wushu. Although the strength of the dragons was not as strong as the 7 main regions, no one dared to provoke them. After all, they had a very good relationship with the heavenly Buddha ruler. Kid. Bet with him. I believe that you can win. I also believe that even if the ruler of all heaven is here, he won't dare to go back on his word. After Long Wushu appeared, he looked at Night Sorrow and said, It's been hard on you guys. Night Sorrow looked at his wives and said coldly, all right. I'll bet. Hee, wouldn't it have been better if you were so straightforward earlier? At this time, another person appeared in the gambling arena. It was none other than Mu Tianlia's original body. Even in the ruler of all heaven's region, not many people knew that he was the military advisor of the ruler of all heaven. However, the divine king of Azura knew. He immediately sent a voice transmission humbly. Military advisor is also here. Please take a seat. All right. Mu Tianlai replied and sat beside the divine king of Azura. Kid. This new divine king of all heaven is very strong, but you don't have to worry. Today, even if the ruler of all heaven comes, I will protect you and fight without worry. Although he had come alone, Long Wushu, who had transmitted his voice to Yishang, was filled with confidence. Senior, thank you for taking care of me. There shouldn't be anyone in the Divine Lord realm who is a match for me. Yishang immediately replied with a voice transmission. His tone was also filled with confidence. Hee, kid, you are a little arrogant. However, I like it. Long Wushu replied with a smile. After this matter is settled, Night Sorrow will thank you properly. Yishang used telepathy to reply to Long Wushu. Then, he looked at Ling Yun, who was being controlled by Mu Tianlai, and said, There are already 7 beauties standing in front of you. Bring my Aunt Fei out. Hee, all right. Catching 7 with 1 is not a loss at all. Ling Yun, who was controlled by Mu Tianlai, laughed as he released Wu Lingfei from his spatial device. Wu Lingfei's complexion was not bad. She should have recovered from her injuries long ago. Furthermore, her aura was close to that of a divine lord. Evidently, she hadn't stopped cultivating. Chapter 27:18. The moment she was released from the spatial artifact, Wu Lingfei's eyes were filled with confusion and bewilderment. When she saw Night Sorrow and his wives, Wu Lingfei's eyes immediately moistened. She said softly, Night Sorrow, you're here. Yes. Aunt Fei, I'm here. I'll bring you home today. Night Sorrow's nose was a little sour. Wu Lingfei used to have an all-powerful heroic spirit. But now, it was completely different. Good. Aunt Fei is waiting for you. Although there were tears in Wu Lingfei's eyes, the corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. Night Sorrow's wives all bowed to her. Sekom Chuyu said with tears in her eyes, Aunt Fei, it's been hard on you. If you hadn't stopped him at that time, Night Sorrow would have been killed. You are the benefactor of the entire Night Sorrow family. Today, we'll bring you home. Aunt Fei, we'll bring you home. Night Sorrow's wives also bowed to Wu Lingfei. Get up. We're family, no need to be so polite. Wu Lingfei smiled and looked at Night Sorrow's wives. After replying, her gaze locked onto Jing Yun's face. Another newcomer joined. Aunt Fei, I'm called Jing Yun. I'm Jing Yun. Yi Shang met me in the God realm. I shouldn't have done that with Yi Shang when Auntie Fei was trapped. Jing Yun immediately replied with a red face. Hee hee. Jing Yun, you don't have to be like this. Wu Lingfei smiled and said, Aunt Fei being trapped is also a kind of experience. There's nothing to hide. Yes. Jing Yun knows. Jing Yun replied. She felt that Wu Lingfei's words were like a spring breeze. Hee hee. What a touching scene of family meeting. Seeing Wu Lingfei and Night Sorrow's wives exchange greetings, Mu Tianlai controlled Lingyun to smile. He looked at Night Sorrow and said, 1 for 7, and it's an empty deal. This deal is not a loss. It's really not a loss. Ha ha ha. Since you don't think it's a loss, let's begin. Night Sorrow looked at his opponent with a solemn expression and said, this is a bet between us, and also a battle to the death. Good. That's exactly what I want. Mu Tianlai smiled confidently and said, the reason why I haven't made a move yet is because I'm waiting for an important person. Someone important? Are you talking about the Lord of all heaven? Night Sorrow immediately asked. In the All Heaven Sovereign's territory, the most important person was most likely the All Heaven Sovereign, who had a terrible character. Hee hee, you're right. Mu Tianlai, who was controlling the doppelganger, laughed coldly and said, no matter what happens today, you will not walk out of this gambling arena alive. Heh heh, Hegemon Tianai once said that if a Hegemon were to attack me, he wouldn't just stand by and watch. I don't believe all heaven would dare to attack me. Night Sorrow said noncommittally. Given all heaven's temperament, he definitely wouldn't have the courage to offend Hegemon Tianai. There are thousands of ways to deal with you. Are you so naive as to think that today's battle will be fair? Mu Tianlai smiled and said, there's still a while before the Lord of all heaven arrives. If I were you, I would say goodbye to my family. No matter where you choose to fight, you will be the one to die. In the face of absolute strength, schemes and machinations are completely useless. Night Sorrow said nonchalantly. He had absolute confidence in facing a divine lord. Heh heh. Let's wait and see then. Mu Tianlai replied confidently as he knelt down in a certain direction. Night Sorrow saw his actions and knew that the Lord of all heaven had arrived. Night Sorrow. How dare you come to my all heaven's territory to cause trouble? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because Hegemon Tianai is protecting you. After the Lord of all heaven appeared, he immediately sat down in the main seat. He was extremely short and the people around him were much taller than him. However, they all had respectful expressions on their faces. Only Night Sorrow, Long Wushu, Long Tianqing, and a few others didn't bow down to him. Your subordinate kidnapped my family. I'm here to bring them back. I'm not here to cause trouble. All heaven didn't use his hegemon domain. Night Sorrow deliberately replied casually. He then looked at Mu Tianlai and said, since he's here, let's begin. All right. Up to you. Mu Tianlai controlled the clone and looked at all heaven. Lord of all heaven, shall I start? The Lord of all heaven snorted and then looked at Mu Tianlai. He smiled and said, you're really a genius to be able to cultivate this clone technique. Heh heh, I was just lucky. Mu Tianlai replied. I was focused on the battle. Please forgive me, Lord of all heaven. Go. He wanted to test this clone properly. If there are no side effects, I'm prepared to refine one myself. The Lord of all heaven didn't change his expression, but he was looking forward to Mu Tianlia's performance. He had obtained Mu Tianlia's clone technique in a cave abode. He had taught it to Mu Tianlai to experiment. He felt that as a lord, if he could refine a clone without anyone noticing, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in the realm of gods. After all, there were only 6 lords in the realm of gods. If Luo Tian could refine a doppelganger, it would be very difficult for his identity to be exposed. Forbidden Reincarnation Spear. Night Sorrow, who didn't know what all heaven was thinking, immediately took out the heavenly reincarnation halberd and attacked Mu Tianlia's clone. The king-grade divine weapon is not bad, and so is the technique. However, you can only use half of it here. Facing Night Sorrow's forbidden reincarnation spear, Mu Tianlai took out a king-grade spear, placed it in front of his chest, and pushed it out. The spear that was pushed out immediately emitted a deep black glow. After the black glow appeared, it immediately turned into black snakes and devoured the energy and lightning from the heavenly reincarnation halberd. Soon, it was a stalemate. The forbidden reincarnation spear from the heavenly reincarnation halberd didn't hit Mu Tianlai before it was completely consumed. This gambling arena is indeed a little strange. However, Ling Yun is indeed very strong. Seeing that the heavenly reincarnation halberd's attack was easily neutralized, Night Sorrow immediately realized that today's battle would be difficult. He had only used half of his strength in the previous attack. It had been severely suppressed by the arena. However, Ling Yun's technique obviously contained the Divine King's rules. It wasn't something that an ordinary Sir God could control. Have you realized that you're not strong enough? After neutralizing Night Sorrow's forbidden reincarnation spear, Mu Tianlia's lips curled up. He had used the body of a Sir God, the king-grade divine weapon, and the Divine King's technique in the previous attack. You barely managed to block my probing attack, and you're already proud of yourself? It's too early. Chapter 27:19. In fact, Night Sorrow had used all his strength in that attack. However, he still had many tricks up his sleeves. The forbidden reincarnation spear could only be considered a probing attack. I can see the whole picture with a single glance. If I were to fight you, I would immediately know that you are not my match. Mu Tianlai laughed coldly. Furthermore, this gambling arena has other means that you are not aware of. What awaits you is the destruction of your spirit. You are the one who should have your soul destroyed. Night Sorrow, who was holding the Samsara halberd, activated the eye of the sea serpent and observed his surroundings. This was undoubtedly an away game. His opponent could set up traps without any scruples and he had to jump into them. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to save Wu Lingfei if the ruler of all heaven intervened. You are not Ling Yun? Night Sorrow, who had activated the eye of the sea serpent, observed the arena but did not find any clues. However, when he observed Ling Yun's body, he realized that his soul was not the same as the Ling Yun he had encountered in the past. Mu Tianlai immediately asked. What did you say? I don't understand. Mu Tianlai was shocked that his secret had been exposed. However, he still replied calmly. Have you taken over Ling Yun's body or what? Night Sorrow, who had temporarily stopped attacking, asked with a frown. He wanted to take revenge on Ling Yun and end what had happened in the past. If Ling Yun had been taken over by someone else, it would be meaningless. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, many people started discussing. They did not know that Ling Yun had been taken over by someone else. How can such an avatar be seen through so easily? It seems that I have to consider whether I should cultivate it or not. The ruler of all heaven, who was sitting in the seats, muttered to himself after hearing Night Sorrow's question. Haha. I know what you are thinking. I was the one who divined that you had ascended to the realm of the gods. Ling Yun is just a pawn of mine. If you want revenge, I will take it. Mu Tianlai did not want to blow up the matter and let everyone know that he had cultivated an avatar. Therefore, he immediately sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. As the saying goes, every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Since you're the one who instigated all of this, why don't you take the blame? Then be prepared to be killed. You won't be able to stop me with just this formation. Night Sorrow bellowed and displayed the evolved 33 Heavens combat secret technique. He raised his strength to the peak. He used the azure rock's soul-rending roar on Mu Tianlai. He knew that his opponent's soul and body were not fused very well. The reason should be that the person who possessed Ling Yun's god's soul wasn't pure enough. It should be an opportunistic existence. The third roar breaks reincarnation. Mu Tianlai, who was controlling Ling Yun's body, felt as if his soul was about to shatter. 50% of it has already been blocked by the gambling arena, so why is it still so terrifying? Could it be that this clone of mine is actually so weak? Mu Tianlia's divine soul was torn apart by the roar. He could barely stand and muttered in confusion. In reality, it wasn't his doppelganger art that had a problem. It was Night Sorrow's azure rock soul-rending roar that was too powerful. After realizing that this attack was effective, Night Sorrow didn't hesitate to use the fiery demon subduing roar. This was also a method to attack the god's soul. After using it, Ling Yun, who was controlled by Mu Tianlai, was immediately in an even more pathetic state. "You're forcing my hand." Mu Tianlai had almost no way to resist the continuous attacks on his divine soul. His face instantly turned ferocious. With a roar, he immediately used a special technique of the doppelganger art. That was to transfer the deity ocean of the original body to the clone, allowing the clone to have two deity oceans. Mu Tianlia's original body was a middle-level divine king, but his strength was about the same as an upper-level divine king. He was very powerful. After the deity ocean of the original body was transferred to the clone, the fiery demon subduing roar was no longer effective. "That's all you've got." After Mu Tianlia's original body took the initiative, the aura on Ling Yun's body was completely different. He became several times stronger in an instant. Two deity oceans? Isn't that the same as me? Night Sorrow, who was observing Ling Yun with the eye of the sea serpent, immediately noticed. At the same time, he scanned the entire gambling arena and quickly discovered that Mu Tianlai, who was beside Luo Tian, did not have a deity ocean in his body. "So you're the person beside Luo Tian. You're a middle-level divine king. However, I'm afraid my current body can't accommodate you." Night Sorrow, who had observed the abnormality, did not hide anything. He used the dragon's swimming steps to get close to Ling Yun. There was no doubt that Ling Yun's deity ocean was at the level of a divine king. In this aspect, continuing to attack would not have much effect. In a situation where he did not use the Tianyun Bao, the best choice was to engage in close combat. "You're very perceptive. However, you're closer to death now that you've discovered so many secrets." Mu Tianlai continued to transmit his voice to Night Sorrow. His voice had returned to its original state. At the same time, he took out a stack of deity talismans from Ling Yun's spatial artifact. They were all king-level deity talismans. When Night Sorrow wanted to get close to him, Mu Tianlai threw out 12 deity talismans consecutively to seal off all directions. He did not give him any chance at all. Boom! 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 In the process of the explosion of the king-level deity talismans, a thick fog rose from the center of the arena. Under such circumstances, Mu Tianlai took the opportunity to switch positions with his doppelganger without anyone noticing. Good move. In an instant, you, a god lord, became a middle-level divine king. Facing Mu Tianlai in front of him, Yishan felt a trace of pressure. Haha. I said that no matter what, you won't be able to escape death today. However, I didn't expect Ling Yun's body to be so weak that he couldn't withstand any of your attacks. Mu Tianlai smiled darkly and sent a message to Yishang. He sneered, "You must be tired from your continuous attacks. It's my turn now." As soon as he finished speaking, he took out a pitch-black spear from his spatial artifact. This spear was much stronger than the one Ling Yun took out from his spatial artifact. It had the potential to surpass the king level. Dark Ice Spear. Mu Tianlai, who had completely released his king-level god realm, condensed his divine essence and struck a terrifying blow. With this strike, the originally brightly lit gambling arena immediately darkened. Furthermore, countless snowflakes drifted down from the heavens. The snowflakes looked very beautiful, but they contained a lot of energy. When they got close to Night Sorrow, they immediately exploded. How can Ling Yun explode with such a powerful attack? Outside the arena, Lin Piaomiao stood beside Long Tianqing and said in disbelief. Even though Ling Yun was very strong back then, it was because they were too weak. Now that he exploded with power, he actually had the power of the Divine King. Lin Piaomiao could not understand it at all. This is strange. The person in front of us is the Divine King from head to toe. Chapter 27:20. So doppelgangers can be used in such a way. I wonder what kind of clone art ancestor Phoenix taught me. Night Sorrow, who had used the sea serpent's eye to see that Mu Tianlai had switched places with his clone, felt that the other party's clone technique was quite impressive. At this point, he recalled the cloning technique that the ancestral Phoenix Sovereign had given him. However, that cloning technique required one to be at the Divine King's level to cultivate. Dark Sky Wandering Dragon Art. At the same time, while the spectators were lamenting, Yishan used the Black Heaven Wandering Dragon art that Xiao Tianxian had taught him to avoid the snowflakes that filled the sky and the shockwaves caused by the snowflakes exploding. Night Sorrow dodged the snowflakes as nimbly as a butterfly, but he couldn't avoid the explosion caused by the snowflakes. However, he discovered that the snowflakes didn't hurt him at all. He couldn't help but wonder, what's going on? It's impossible that he's not a threat at all with such a big lineup. Hee. Seemingly aware of Night Sorrow's doubts, Mu Tianlai revealed a sinister smile on his face. Seeing this, Night Sorrow immediately used the Divine Essence Dragon Lock spell to bind Mu Tianlai. Then, while facing the snowflakes that filled the sky, he once again threw out the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear. Boom! This time, the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear struck Mu Tianlai, who was temporarily trapped in a sealed space, without any way to dodge. Even if Mu Tianlai was fighting Night Sorrow with the middle-ranked Divine King. However, after being struck by the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear, he was still severely injured. The soft armor on his chest was shattered. Ha ha ha. That's right, you are the strongest Divine Lord I've ever met. The injured Mu Tianlai looked a little disheveled, which shocked the audience. However, he laughed out loud. Then, Mu Tianlai raised the dark ice spear again and chanted a mysterious incantation under everyone's surprised gazes. Boom! 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 In an instant, the parts of Night Sorrow's body that were affected by the snowflake explosion were all detonated by the spell. However, after these traces exploded, they did not cause any harm to him. But soon, Night Sorrow felt that something was wrong with the new deity Sea. It was completely wrapped up by a strange substance, and he couldn't release his soul power at all. Fortunately, I have 2 Divine Sense CS. Otherwise, I won't be able to use the deity Ocean, and I won't even be able to retrieve the Tianyun Bao. Even after using the power of virtue, he was unable to purify the Divine Sea's shackles. Night Sorrow was surprised by the other party's methods, but he couldn't help but rejoice that he had 2 Divine Seas. Mu Tianlai, who was fighting Night Sorrow with his original body, had a smug look on his face. He began to swallow pills and slowly recover from his injuries. In his opinion, he had complete control of the situation, and Night Sorrow was already a fish on the chopping board. Seeing Mu Tianlai swallow the elixir to recover, Night Sorrow did not hesitate to swallow a few recovery elixirs. Although his second Spirit Sea was sealed, he still had his first Spirit Sea, so he did not panic at all. Looks like you still don't know what's wrong with you. Seeing Night Sorrow's nonchalant look, Mu Tianlia's face revealed a mocking smile. I know that I will kill you in an instant. Night Sorrow replied confidently as he prepared to retrieve the Tianyun Bao. If the other party was Ling Yun, he would have been killed long ago. Now that the other party was a powerful middle-level Divine King, he wouldn't hold back anymore. At this moment, the ruler of all heaven, who had been watching the battle, suddenly looked at Long Wushu and said, "Are you here today to stand on Night Sorrow's side?" "I'm here today to protect him, so that he can escape unscathed after winning," Long Wushu replied. Long Wushu replied. After Luo Tian had appeared, this was the first time he had cast his gaze over. Haha. Since you're on Night Sorrow's side, why don't we have a bet? The ruler of all heaven revealed a wretched and provocative smile. Combined with his ugly appearance, it was very infuriating. Oh. How do you want to bet? What do you want to bet? Even though he was facing a sovereign, Long Wushu didn't seem to be afraid at all. He asked with interest. We are both existences that surpass the divine king. Naturally, there's no need to bet on a king-grade item. If we want to bet, let's bet on a king-grade item. What do you think? The ruler of all heaven asked eagerly. You mean that you're betting on your subordinate to win, and I'm betting on Night Sorrow to win? Long Wushu asked with a smile. He didn't seem to be afraid at all. This person isn't any weaker than the ruler of all heaven at all. Seeing this scene, some of the spectators couldn't help but feel puzzled. Amidst the chatter, all heaven said, you bet on Night Sorrow and a fist-sized ruler stone. If he wins, I'll give you 5 ruler stones of the same size. What do you think? He was clear about Mu Tianlia's methods and felt that Night Sorrow would lose without a doubt. So it's a 1:5 ratio. How about this? 1 ruler stone is too stingy. I'll bet 5 ruler stones. If you lose, you'll pay me 25 ruler stones. How about that? Long Wushu countered with a bold question. Okay. Dragons are indeed a rich race. I'll accept your bet. All heaven smiled wretchedly. At this moment, Long Wushu took out 5 fist-sized ruler stones and smiled. Here's my bet. Ruler of all heaven, take out your bet too. What's the rush? I'm a ruler of all heaven. How can I lack a few ruler stones? All heaven had ruler stones, but he had only accumulated 6 or 7 over the years. How could he take out 25 ruler stones at once? He didn't even blush as he replied. In reality, he felt that this was a sure-win deal. It didn't matter if he had the capital or not. Long Wushu looked at the ruler of all heaven and said, since you don't want to take them out, I won't force you. However, you have to swear a heavenly Tao oath. If you don't admit defeat, you'll be punished by the heavenly Tao. Okay. I, all heaven, swear a heavenly Tao oath. If I lose today and can't compensate Long Wushu with 25 ruler stones or other items of the same grade, I'm willing to be punished by the heavenly Tao oath. All heaven didn't hesitate and immediately swore a heavenly Tao oath. In his opinion, Night Sorrow had a ruler artifact, but he didn't sense it. This meant that Tianyun Bao was definitely in a spatial artifact. Now, Night Sorrow's deity ocean was sealed by Mu Tianlai and couldn't be taken out. Hence, there was no hope of winning. Good. Ruler of all heaven is a straightforward person. Long Wushu smiled and nodded. He muttered, I didn't expect this. I didn't come here in vain. Whether or not we came here in vain, let's wait and see. The ruler of all heaven mocked. He looked at the arena and said, why aren't you fighting? He realized that Night Sorrow and Mu Tianlai had stopped and were standing at the edge of the arena. I'm looking at what bet you and Senior Long have. Chapter 27-21. Bastard. You're courting death. How dare you be so disrespectful to the sovereign? I'll kill you right now. Let's see how arrogant you can be. Seeing that Night Sorrow didn't care about the sovereign of all heaven at all, Mu Tianlai was enraged. Don't think that you're invincible just because you're the divine king and know some tricks. Night Sorrow took out the Tianyun Bao and the 3 heavenly cloud arrows. He drew the bow and shot the arrows in 3 directions. Following 3 explosions, some of the important measures set up in the formation were directly shattered by him. The formation that suppressed his strength disappeared, and Night Sorrow felt relaxed. What's going on? You can still use your divine soul power. This seat clearly used some means to seal your divine sea. Seeing that Night Sorrow had taken out the sovereign grade divine artifact and destroyed some of the tricks in the formation, Mu Tianlai was in disbelief. Luo Tian, who was sitting outside, was also confused. How can he use a spatial artifact? This shouldn't be. Haha. Good. The younger generation will surpass us in time. A godlord can use a sovereign-grade divine artifact. I'm so envious. Long Wushu smiled and praised him. Night Sorrow had used a sovereign-grade divine artifact, which made him feel very confident. This was also something that Long Tianqing had explained to him clearly. There are many things that you don't understand. Night Sorrow looked at the confused Mu Tianlai and summoned the 3 heavenly cloud arrows. He drew the bow and shot the arrows. He didn't use his blood to activate the Tianyun bow, but the 3 arrows were still powerful. Although Mu Tianlai was the divine king, he didn't dare to underestimate him. He immediately used his movement technique to dodge. You want to dodge? You can't. Seeing that Mu Tianlai was using a movement technique to dodge the heavenly cloud arrow, Yishang immediately used the divine essence dragon-locking array to restrain him. Although Mu Tianlia's reaction wasn't slow and he quickly destroyed the sealed space created by the formation, he was still hit by the 3 heavenly cloud arrows. After being hit in the chest one after another, he was immediately sent flying and suffered serious injuries. Phew. What kind of method was this? If I'm not mistaken, he's using a Dominator rank artifact. When they saw that Night Sorrow had used a Dominator-grade artifact to send Mu Tianlai flying, some of the spectators exclaimed in surprise. When some people saw the sovereign artifact, they immediately shouted in displeasure, "This is cheating. How are we supposed to fight now that a sovereign-rank divine artifact has appeared? Am I cheating? They cheated a lot." Sky Cloud Sun Shooting Art. In the face of the audience's boos, Night Sorrow smiled and shot another arrow at Mu Tianlai. This arrow contained Tianyun Bao's archery skills. Its power was even greater than the previous 3 arrows combined. The All-Heaven Ruler's expression turned ugly when he saw Night Sorrow shoot the arrow. Mu Tianlai, who was standing in the middle of the field, was furious that Night Sorrow had used the Tianyun Bao to break the formation. After thinking for a moment, he took out a dozen king-grade divine talismans. As he dodged, he was prepared to use the divine talismans to break the formation. He didn't want to be trapped in the sealed space again and be bombarded by the sky cloud arrows. However, what Mu Tianlai didn't expect was that Night Sorrow didn't use the divine origin dragon lock formation this time. As for the heavenly cloud arrow that he shot out, it was as if it had grown eyes and turned into a shield. Use the method I prepared for you. Although he has a Dominator-grade artifact, the power he can unleash is only at the Divine King's level. Don't panic. Seeing that Mu Tianlai was clearly panicking in the face of a Dominator-grade artifact, Luo Tian immediately sent him a voice transmission. The stakes were too high this time. Even if he was a sovereign, he couldn't afford to lose. Yes. Lord Sovereign. After receiving Luo Tian's voice transmission, Mu Tianlai calmed down a lot. He immediately took out a strange-looking object from his spatial artifact. It was a chestnut-shaped artifact. Although it was a king-grade artifact, it vaguely contained a trace of a sovereign-grade artifact's aura. After Mu Tianlai took it out, he immediately tossed it into the air. The artifact that was tossed out immediately exploded in the air, forming a huge spiderweb. After this spiderweb formed, it immediately reflected the sky cloud arrows. Luo Tian was right. Night Sorrow's sky cloud arrows weren't as powerful as he had imagined. Haha. So, your strength is only so-so even after using a Dominator-grade artifact. Mu Tianlia's face lit up when he saw Night Sorrow's sky cloud arrows being reflected by the huge spiderweb. He had originally thought that he wouldn't be able to withstand an attack from a Dominator-grade artifact. It's too early for you to be happy. After witnessing the entire process of the sky cloud arrows being reflected, Night Sorrow reached out and grabbed them. Then, he used the sky cloud arrows to cut his fingertips and poured blood onto Tianyun Bao's bow. As Night Sorrow's blood continued to increase, Tianyun Bao, who had drunk the blood, immediately bloomed with a different light. Soon, flesh and reverse scales began to grow out. He stroked Tian Yunbao's surface and felt an inexplicable chill. This coldness contained a terrifying killing intent. It's over. I didn't expect that after all this fighting, I still have to rely on Tian Yunbao. After shooting 7 sky cloud arrows in a row, Night Sorrow drew his bow and sighed slightly. In reality, he hoped that he could defeat Mu Tianlai with his own strength. The power of these 7 arrows, a buzzing sound rang out. Mu Tianlai was immediately stunned by the scene in front of him. This time, after Night Sorrow shot 7 sky cloud arrows in a row, they immediately turned into 7 golden crows in the air. They were very dazzling. After these 7 sky cloud arrows turned into golden crows, they didn't immediately attack. Instead, they circled around the gambling arena. It was as if they were brewing their killing intent. Break. When the killing intent of the 7 golden crows had gathered to an unimaginable level, Yishang immediately controlled 3 of them to attack Mu Tianlia's spider web. The spider web that he had set up was shattered without any suspense. Mu Tianlai, who had lost his protection, immediately paled. He was about to use other means in the gambling arena, but he found that all of them had been neutralized by Night Sorrow's 3 arrows. Damn it, how can he use the deity ocean and see through the means in the gambling arena? The spider web in front of him was shattered. Mu Tianlai panicked again. He could sense that it would be difficult for him to take the arrows in front of him. Just as he was thinking about how to fight, Luo Tian's cold eyes turned cold. Luo Tian, whose brows were completely cold, thought for a moment. Then, he poured a large amount of Dominator energy into Mu Tianlia's clone, Lingyun, beside him. At the same time, he said telepathically, the legendary last move of the clone technique is the power of the original body and the clone. I will continue to pour power into you. Quickly get rid of this ant in front of you. I don't want to lose this battle. If this move doesn't work, use the forbidden move. Yes. Lord Ruler. Chapter 27-22. At the same time, a powerful sovereign aura appeared around Mu Tianlai. He immediately used this powerful energy and used the dark ice spear in his hand to fight against the sky cloud arrows that were flying in the air. With Luo Tian's help, he didn't look like he was going to lose even though it was still very tiring. So it was you who did this. Feeling the change in Mu Tianlai, Night Sorrow immediately looked in Luo Tian's direction. He realized that Luo Tian was secretly transferring sovereign-level energy to Ling Yun's body. He immediately scolded, Luo Tian, do you have any shame? As a sovereign, can't you have some magnanimity? Can't you afford to lose? Humph. And, if you slander me again, then I'll kill you right away. Luo Tian couldn't hold back his anger after being scolded by Night Sorrow. As the saying goes, when a sovereign is angry, blood will flow for thousands of miles. Luo Tian's anger silenced the entire gambling arena. The spectators who were originally shouting were so scared that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. At this time, Long Wushu, who was as calm as Mount Tai, smiled. Night Sorrow, don't bother about this. In the end, you have to rely on your own ability to fight. I have high hopes for you. His meaning was very clear. He wouldn't pursue the matter of Luo Tian cheating. After all, the other party was a sovereign. If he was shameless, it would be difficult to deal with him. At the same time, he hinted that Luo Tian wouldn't cheat again because he had already started to pay attention to this matter. Yes. Senior Long. Night Sorrow, who replied to Long Wushu, felt that he had used up a lot of energy and swallowed a few recovery pills. After recovering, Night Sorrow immediately used the evolved Treastrimsa battle's secret technique and raised his strength to the peak again. At this time, Mu Tianlai was fighting against a few golden crows in the sky. After these sky cloud arrows transformed into golden crows, although they didn't have self-awareness, under Night Sorrow's control, they continuously attacked the other party. Night Sorrow, who had raised his strength to the peak, held the heavenly samsara halberd in his hand and used the dragon steps to charge towards Mu Tianlai. He planned to use the 7 heaven cloud arrows to feign an attack and rely on close combat to severely injure Mu Tianlai. When Night Sorrow had first arrived, Mu Tianlai, who was resisting the 7 sky cloud arrows, had thought of dodging. However, he was quickly blocked by the Divine Essence dragon-locking array. Not only did he have to face 7 heaven cloud arrows, but he was also caught up by Night Sorrow. After closing the distance, Night Sorrow did not use any gunshots. Instead, he used his exquisite marksmanship to continuously launch light attacks. Damn it! How could a mere divine lord be so powerful? Even with the help of a sovereign-grade divine artifact, it shouldn't be this bad. Mu Tianlai, who had been continuously suppressed, looked at Luo Tian timidly. At this moment, Luo Tian's face was completely ashen. Clearly, he was extremely disappointed. Looks like I can only use the forbidden move. As a divine king, Mu Tianlai couldn't help but feel a strong sense of anger when he was suppressed by Night Sorrow. It's already like this. What are you still hesitating for? Seeing Mu Tianlia's expression, Luo Tian coldly transmitted his voice. Yes. Sovereign. Even if I have to sacrifice myself, I will still succeed in victory. After saying this, Mu Tianlai, who had been suppressed all this while, roared crazily. After he roared, an extremely evil shadow descended from the void and attached itself to his body. In an instant, Mu Tianlia's aura became more than 5 times stronger. When faced with the heaven cloud arrows and samsara halberd, he no longer chose to dodge. Instead, he crazily took them head-on. Evil spirit possession? Night Sorrow knew that Mu Tianlai knew some divination techniques. However, he didn't expect him to use such a move. What kind of technique is this? Seeing Mu Tianlai attract the evil spirit into his body, Long Tianqing, who was watching from the outside, immediately asked Long Wushu. This is a forbidden technique. Using a secret technique to summon a powerful evil spirit from another world to attach itself to his body. If nothing goes wrong, it won't last for long. Furthermore, after it ends, his body will be completely crippled. A rare look of seriousness appeared between Long Wushu's brows. He was afraid that Night Sorrow wouldn't be able to take it under the other party's technique. Night Sorrow's wife and Wu Lingfei's eyes were also filled with worry. This was especially so for Wu Lingfei. When she realized that Night Sorrow was fighting against the Divine King, she was extremely shocked. At the same time, she was also secretly worried for Mu Tianlai. When Mu Tianlai summoned the evil spirit into his body, she was so nervous that she bit her lips. Die. And of the Sur God realm. After the evil spirit entered his body, Mu Tianlai obviously became more powerful. At the same time, his rationality gradually disappeared and his attacks became crazier. The dark ice spear in his hand was also swung around like a rod. Seeing that Mu Tianlai had become so crazy, Luo Tian, who originally had a solemn expression, smiled again. Very strong. However, against you, I won't back down. Night Sorrow, who was still fighting with Mu Tianlai in close combat, didn't back down at all. Furthermore, the fighting spirit in his body was raised to another level. If you don't back down, then die. Mu Tianlia's body, which was no longer under Mu Tianlia's control, shouted sinisterly. Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of ice-cold black flames. The distance was too close. Although Night Sorrow chose to dodge at the first moment, he was still infected. After the black flames burned Night Sorrow's body, they immediately turned into countless small black snakes and crazily drilled into his body. Is it another spiritual attack? This attack reminded Night Sorrow of the move that Mu Tianlai had used to seal his spirit ocean. However, very quickly, Night Sorrow smiled. Although Mu Tianlai had become more powerful after being possessed by the evil spirit, the moves that he used were also more terrifying than Luo Tian's back then. However, the small snakes that were formed by the black aura obviously had a dense evil aura. This is really the will of the heavens. Purify with the power of virtue. Night Sorrow, who had originally thought that it was a little tricky, suddenly laughed. He was least afraid of all kinds of evil creatures and dark means. As the power of virtue in his body turned into a dragon of virtue, not only were the black snakes formed by the black flames purified, but even the black flames that Mu Tianlai had spat out were completely purified. How can there be such a strong power of virtue? Realizing that Night Sorrow actually had such a strong power of virtue, the evil that had descended upon Mu Tianlia's body was instantly enraged. In terms of raw strength, he definitely had the upper hand. However, Night Sorrow's power of virtue was clearly the nemesis of evil creatures like him. I have obtained the body of a divine king like you, but I have to be burned by the power of virtue. Even my luck will be implicated. This matter ends here. The evil spirit that Mu Tianlai had summoned was obviously not a good person. If he continued to fight, he would definitely bring great trouble to Night Sorrow. However, after realizing that Night Sorrow had the power of virtue protecting him, he immediately fled back to the boundary where he was. He actually fled? The moment the evil left, Mu Tianlia's body collapsed on the ground of the gambling arena. Night Sorrow, who had been observing him with the sea serpent's eye, confirmed that the evil spirit in his body had left. Although he was a little surprised, he still used the Samsara halberd to attack and was ready to end the battle. Chapter 27-23. Haha. Ruler of all heaven, we have already agreed that this battle will determine victory and defeat, as well as life and death. Now that the outcome has been decided, you are not thinking of interfering, right? Long Wushu, who had been paying attention to Luo Tian's movements, immediately stood up and looked at him. Luo Tian, who was originally thinking of playing tricks, was stared at by Long Wushu. His face instantly turned black like the bottom of a pot. It was obvious that he was thinking of ways to continue acting shamelessly, but he was stopped. Humph. I naturally disdain interfering in the battle of cultivators of a lower realm. Luo Tian forcefully suppressed his anger and squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. Then, he set up a barrier and isolated all the ordinary spectators in the gambling arena. He looked at Night Sorrow and said, "You have already won, stop. Before the battle started, we have already agreed that victory and defeat, as well as life and death. Now that the Divine King has lost, what awaits him is only death." Night Sorrow did not have a good impression of the ruler of all heaven, so he killed Mu Tianlai without any hesitation. Night Sorrow was very interested in Mu Tianlia's cloning secret technique, but he knew that with Luo Tian around, he would not be able to obtain it, so he killed Mu Tianlai directly. Humph. Seeing Night Sorrow kill Mu Tianlai in front of him, Luo Tian snorted coldly. He no longer cared about Night Sorrow and looked at Long Wushu. He threw out a storage bag and said, "If the quantity is not enough, I will compensate you as soon as possible. I hope you will keep your word." Long Wushu, who received the storage bag, smiled. He did not pursue the matter of Luo Tian owing him a debt. He checked the storage bag and took out 6 ruler stones. He gave 3 to Long Tianqing and 3 to Night Sorrow. He looked at Night Sorrow and said with a smile, "Not bad. The younger generation will surpass us in time. I can foresee that your future is limitless. Thank you for your praise, Senior Long, but there is no need for the ruler stones. After all, you won them from a bet." Yi Shang looked at Long Wushu and felt that there was an extraordinary aura coming from him. Haha. Don't be in a hurry to reject these 3 sovereign stones. If I'm not mistaken, your sovereign artifact has already been severely damaged. Especially those few arrows. If they are not maintained, I'm afraid they will be damaged directly. Long Wushu didn't stretch his hand out to take the sovereign stone from Night Sorrow. After he explained, his expression turned solemn. The sovereign of the all-heaven realms will definitely seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Now, you killed someone in his territory. We also benefited from him. It won't be easy for you to leave all heaven's territory. There is indeed a hidden danger in this area. However, this is something that Night Sorrow must do. Night Sorrow said in a deep voice, then continued, I have to thank Senior Long for coming. Night Sorrow doesn't have anything to repay you for now, but I will remember your favor. Ha ha ha. Just remember this favor. Just remember me, it has nothing to do with the Dragon Clan. Long Wushu laughed out loudly and said, since you have already killed your enemy and successfully took your revenge, I won't disturb you two from catching up with your loved ones. Before leaving All Heaven's territory, I will rest in Tianqing's spatial artifact. Yes. Senior Long, Night Sorrow will remember this. Night Sorrow replied politely and thanked Long Tianqing. Then, he looked at Wu Lingfei and the others. He said, Aunt Fei, although we haven't seen each other for a long time, I have a lot of good things to tell you. However, this is not the place to catch up. You can enter my spatial artifact with everyone else. Senior Long and I will bring you all out. All right. It's the same for me to catch up with everyone in my spatial artifact. Wu Lingfei replied with a smile. Seeing that Night Sorrow had become so strong, she was very gratified in her heart. Yes. It's the same with us accompanying Aunt Fei. At this time, Sikong Chuyu said. He held Wu Lingfei's arm and said, Aunt Fei, let me introduce you to Jing Yun, who has just joined our big family. All right. You all can catch up. Help me take care of Aunt Fei. Night Sorrow said. Then, he looked at Jin Nia and said, Brother Jin Nia, you should go in too. All Heaven doesn't dare to make a move because of Senior Tianqing and me, as well as Sovereign Tianai and the dragons, but you are in danger. I'll go in too. Jin Nia also understood the seriousness of the matter. If All Heaven attacked him, he would die without a doubt. He immediately entered the Clear Sky Pagoda. Senior Tianqing, where should we go? Night Sorrow wasn't very familiar with All Heaven's territory, so he looked at Long Tianqing and asked. Long Tianqing looked at Night Sorrow and asked, where are you planning to go now? The original plan was to go to Sovereign Tianya's territory. However, we have already promised the 13 Yunling eagles to rescue them. Let's go to them first. After Yi Shang finished speaking, he asked, Senior Tianqing, what do you think? Just follow your heart and go forth. If All Heaven wants to make a move on us, we can't escape no matter what route we choose. So, since we are already here, let's take things as they come. Long Tianqing took the lead and flew out of the gambling arena. Night Sorrow followed closely behind. When he left the gambling arena, he released his divine sense to be on guard. After probing for a while and confirming that no one was following him, he withdrew his divine sense and studied his sealed deity ocean. He discovered that the second deity ocean that Mu Tianlai had sealed had automatically recovered. Night Sorrow still felt that the method Mu Tianlai had used was somewhat mysterious. Thus, on the way to Yunling, he asked, Senior Tianqing, have you heard of a method to seal someone's deity ocean? Just now, when I was fighting with Mu Tianlai, he sealed my divine sense C. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it before. Mu Tianlai is the first one I've seen. Long Tianqing replied. Mu Tianlia's method was indeed somewhat mysterious. I got it. Night Sorrow replied, feeling that it was a pity. If All Heaven hadn't been present, he would have been able to force out such a method. Since we're in a hurry, why don't I control the flying divine artifact while you go and chat with your family? Long Tianqing said understandingly as they continued on their way. Then I'll have to trouble Senior Tianqing. Yi Shan smiled politely. He really did want to thank Wu Ling concubine. If Wu Lingfei hadn't helped him block Ling Yun's attack, he might have died the moment he arrived in the divine world. When Night Sorrow entered the Clear Sky Pagoda, his parents and wives were chatting with Wu Lingfei. Among them, Jing Yun had clearly become familiar with Wu Lingfei and was telling her about Night Sorrow's experiences. Night Sorrow smiled when he saw how happy everyone was. Then, he bowed to Wu Lingfei and said, Auntie Fei, Night Sorrow is late. I've made you suffer a lot. Actually, I didn't suffer much when I was captured by Ling Yun. At first, they wanted me to give it to that purple mansion divine lord as a birthday gift. However, for some reason, Ling Yun's temperament changed, and he decided to help me cultivate to divine lord. Chapter 27-24. Ling Yun changed so much because he was refined into an avatar. The real mastermind behind this is Mu Tianlai. Knight Sorrow told them about his encounter in the battle. Everyone was surprised to hear that Ling Yun was the one who was plotted against by Mu Tianlai. There's actually such a thing? No wonder he changed so much. Wu Lingfei was relieved when she recalled her experience. She then asked, Knight Sorrow, I heard that you're preparing to set up your own sect in the God realm? Yes. I've let everyone down. I'm going to set up an immortal divine territory to protect everyone. Knight Sorrow nodded. His biggest goal was to set up an immortal divine territory. It's good to have ideas, but there are too many strong people in the God realm. You have to be careful. My strength has fallen too far behind. Wu Lingfei said regretfully. She felt that she had missed out on some important years. Aunt Fei, you're not weak either. There's no time to cultivate in the God realm. As long as we establish ourselves in the immortal divine territory, everyone will have enough time to cultivate. Knight Sorrow comforted her. Sikong Chuyu also smiled and said, That's right. Aunt Fei, it's not too late for you to work hard. Yes. Aunt Fei. You have the Ice Phoenix bloodline. I'll bring you to the Ancestral Phoenix's lair after we're done with this. There's a very important opportunity waiting for you there. Of course, it's the same for Jing Yun. Knight Sorrow said to Wu Lingfei. Her and Jing Yun's bloodline was closely related to the Phoenix. They had to take the opportunity left behind by the Ancestral Phoenix. The Ancestral Phoenix's lair? You really found it? Wu Lingfei was slightly stunned when she heard Knight Sorrow's words. In reality, she had come to the God realm with everyone because she was reluctant to part with Yishang and the others. As for searching for the Phoenix ancestral grounds, it was simply an excuse she had randomly made up. She never thought that her words would actually come true. Yes. It's the Ancestral Phoenix's lair. I was fortunate enough to meet Lord Ancestor Phoenix and receive his guidance. Knight Sorrow smiled and continued, This may be the will of the heavens. You and Jing Yun deserve such an opportunity. If you discover any fortuitous opportunities, give them all to Auntie Fei. I won't take a single one. At this moment, Jing Yun hurriedly shook her head. She couldn't help but admire what Wu Lingfei had done for the entire Yi clan. Hee, Jing Yun, there's no need for that. It belongs to whoever gets it. Everyone had their own fortuitous encounters. You don't have to give the opportunity to me. Otherwise, everything will become meaningless. Wu Lingfei looked at Jing Yun and said with an amiable smile. Auntie Fei is right. Let's wait and see. A smile appeared on Jing Yun's face. We seem to have arrived outside. You guys continue chatting, I'm going out to settle some things. At this moment, Long Tianqing sent a voice transmission from outside. Knight Sorrow and the other girls said a few words before leaving the Clear Sky Pagoda and appearing in the Cloud Ridge. The current Cloud Ridge was slightly different from the first time they came. Its aura seemed to be much colder. After Knight Sorrow and Long Tianqing appeared, the 13 eagles of the Cloud Ridge were pleasantly surprised. The eldest brother of the Cloud Ridge said gratefully, Our two benefactors have indeed rushed back. We, the 13 eagles of the Cloud Ridge, will never forget your kindness. If we can leave this place, we will definitely serve the two of you from now on. To be honest, I will be establishing my own divine realm in a few days and I really need some manpower. If you have nowhere to go, you can follow me to battle. Knight Sorrow said. After experiencing the incident with Wu Lingfei, he felt that it was necessary to raise his strength as soon as possible. Therefore, he told the 13 of them about this matter. Divine realm? Establishing one's own divine realm with the strength of a divine lord? How badly will they be beaten up? The second mother of the Cloud Ridge was stunned for a moment first. But following that, she looked at Long Tianqing and said, "Makes sense." Although Night Sorrow's benefactor is a divine lord, Senior Tianqing is the divine king. It's no different from the divine king's faction. Didn't you all see Night Sorrow make a move before? His strength is stronger than mine. Hearing the second mother of the Cloud Ridge's words, Long Tianqing replied with a smile. "And, that's true too. Benefactor Night Sorrow's strength is indeed not what a divine lord level can shackle." Recalling the appearance of Night Sorrow making a move, Cloud Ridge Old 4 still had some lingering fear. Her. The past is all in the past. We're friends now. Night Sorrow glanced at Cloud Ridge Old 4 and said, "I'm not someone who seeks revenge for the smallest grievance. The conflict between us ends here. Starting from now, Senior Tianqing and I will help you all leave with peace of mind." After speaking with Cloud Ridge Old 4, Night Sorrow asked, "At present, what's the thing that's restricting you all from leaving?" "Right now, it's as if we're locked in an array formation. We don't have the ability to leave at all." Cloud Ridge Old 4 pondered for a moment before saying, "In other words, we've been placed in the heaven and earth great array by that terrifying existence below and have become a part of it. If we want to leave, we have to break the array formation. Breaking the heaven and earth great array is very difficult." Long Tianqing immediately said with a frown after Cloud Ridge Old 4 finished speaking. Then, she began to observe everything around her seriously, hoping to find some clues. "That's right. I have something to tell you all." Night Sorrow, who was also observing, opened the sea serpent's eye and told everyone about how he had offended the Overlord of all heaven. "Since we're going to die anyway, let alone the Overlord of all heaven, we won't be afraid even if a prime appears." Cloud Ridge Old 4 laughed when he heard Night Sorrow's words. They would rather go against the Overlord of all heaven than continue to be tortured in the array formation. "Night Sorrow, I have some clues." After observing for a while, Long Tianqing suddenly sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. "What clues?" Night Sorrow asked curiously. He, who had opened the sea serpent's eye to observe, couldn't find any clues for now. "I'm very familiar with the aura in the array formation. It belongs to an expert from a long time ago. I remember that she had obtained something called the Heaven and Earth Great Array Formation. It even caused a fight." The one who replied Night Sorrow was Long Wushu. After saying that, he began to introduce the expert below. Her name was Lin Yunxi, and she was a talented female cultivator in the deity world. Her rise to fame was only second to Overlord Qing Yin and the famous Overlord. Perhaps it was because the other two had become overlords that she felt that she had to break through to the Overlord realm. In the end, she failed. If I'm not wrong, the Heaven and Earth Great Array Formation should be here. As long as we find it, we can easily break the array formation before us. Chapter 27-25. If we can really find the Heaven and Earth Formation map, it will be of great importance to the entire immortal domain. Night Sorrow said excitedly. Once they were done here, they would head to Tian Ye's territory and establish the immortal domain. If he could set up a Heaven and Earth Great Formation in the immortal domain, it would be very useful. After all, using the power of Heaven and Earth to set up a formation was much more powerful than any other formation. That is indeed the case. If you can get it, your immortal domain will be much more stable. When the matter of the undying god domain was brought up, Long Wushu smiled and said, "However, don't be happy too early. The existence below was temperamental. If one were to say that Lord Voiceless Sound was a fairy, then she was the witch. Everyone must be careful. If you can avoid bumping into her, try not to." Currently, it was impossible to ascertain whether Lin Yunxi was truly dead or not. Long Wushu reminded him. In the early years, Lin Yunxi was still very famous in the celestial realm, but her reputation wasn't very good. Not only was she temperamental, but she was also a little cruel and liked to torture people. From the way she treated the 13 eagles of Yunling, she is indeed a cruel woman. Hearing Long Wushu's reminder, Night Sorrow nodded his head and prepared to treat this matter seriously. After determining the general direction, they had to find the heaven and earth formation diagram first. He looked at the 13 Yunling eagles and asked, "Did the terrifying existence below leave anything behind? We need to find the array diagram to successfully break the array. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave at all." Night Sorrow was telling the truth. If he didn't have the array diagram, he wouldn't have the ability to break the array. The great formation of heaven and earth in front of him was indeed set up exquisitely. Even he could not see through it. There aren't any clues. But we know that she sleeps down there. It's just that we don't know if he's dead or alive. When Boss Yunling heard Night Sorrow's words, he immediately said, "If I'm not mistaken, she should have brought all of her spatial magical items with her. Formation diagrams should be the same. If this is the only possibility, then this matter is not easy to handle." The terrifying existence below was only a step away from becoming a sovereign, and was one of the legends of the god world. He really didn't want to dig up graves. As the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. For the sake of everyone's escape, we can investigate the situation below together. Seeing the troubled expression on Night Sorrow's face, the second mother of Yunling immediately spoke. She was afraid that Night Sorrow and Long Tianqing would leave immediately. "Don't be impulsive. Don't take this step unless you have no other choice." Digging up graves was undoubtedly a grudge that would not end until one of them was dead. Yi Shang felt that there was no need to completely offend that unknown existence, so he rejected this suggestion. At this time, Boss Yunling's expression suddenly changed and he said, "Not good." A divine king had entered the formation, and there were 4 divine kings. There's a strong killing intent on their bodies. The 4 divine king? Are you able to identify them? It's possible that the overlord of all heaven sent someone to target me. Night Sorrow asked. Not only are they masked, but their auras have also been altered. It's impossible to tell their identities. After using the heaven and earth great array to sense them, Boss Yunling immediately described them to Night Sorrow. Upon hearing this, Night Sorrow immediately reacted. It was very likely that the overlord of all heaven felt that he didn't have enough divine kings, so he paid a price to find other divine kings in other regions. As for the divine king he found, he did not want to reveal his identity. Hence, he kept himself hidden. It should be. The 4 of them are wearing the same black robes. Their killing intent is astonishing, and they are getting closer and closer to us. Boss Yunling used the formation to sense everything and looked at Night Sorrow worriedly. There are 4 divine kings. We can deal with one, but there's really no way to deal with the other 3. Are we going to fight or run? Why run? It's just 4 divine kings. Let's fight. With the help of the heaven and earth great array, our chances are very high. Yi Shang said firmly. He had no intention of backing down from the battle. He also knew that this predicament was something he would definitely encounter in the overlord of all heaven's territory. It was already very good that only 4 divine kings had appeared. Good. Then let's fight. We believe that our benefactor Night Sorrow, as the virtuous divine lord, has the protection of the providence of heaven and earth. There won't be any problems. Boss Yunling didn't show any fear when he heard Night Sorrow's words. After all, with the help of the heaven and earth great array, the 13 eagles of Yunling had fought against the divine king. Haha. Night Sorrow, we finally caught up to you. Just as Night Sorrow and Boss Yunling were talking, a roar came from the void. Afterwards, 4 black-robed god kings who had used a special technique to conceal their faces, such that even Yi Shang's clam dragons I could not see through them, descended around them. You must have been hired by the overlord of all heaven to deal with me, right? Judging from your attire, you probably don't want to expose your identities. Night Sorrow released the power of his divine spirit and sensed everyone. He discovered that the auras of the 4 divine kings were very chaotic. He couldn't determine their identities at all. However, he knew that there must be some old acquaintances among them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have disguised themselves like this. You already know the answer to your question. How can someone who took advantage of the overlord of all heaven's territory leave safely without being investigated? One of the divine kings sneered. We won't make things difficult for you. As long as you hand over the overlord god artifact, this matter will be over. You call me the overlord god artifact? Why don't you just kill me? When he heard the other party's words, Yi Shang smiled noncommittally. Surrendering without a fight wasn't his style. Since you want to die, we won't be polite. You will soon realize that you made the wrong choice. The killing intent of the God King who had just spoken immediately exploded out. Don't be afraid. Let's do it. Brother Jin Nia, come out and help. You only need to pin down one of them. As for Senior Long Wushu, you don't have to do anything. I feel that as long as you do something, all heaven will do it. Night Sorrow called Jin Nia out of the clear sky pagoda and transmitted a message to Long Wushu. He knew that as long as Long Wushu made a move, all heaven would disregard his reputation and attack personally. Fortunately, he didn't ask him to come out. Haha. Could it be that your thoughts are still so clear in such a situation? Long Wushu, who had received Night Sorrow's message, smiled and said, I will support you. I will ensure that all heaven won't attack you. Okay. Thank you, Senior. Night Sorrow replied to Long Wushu. Then, he transmitted a message to Boss Yunling, open the heaven and earth great formation. Help me pin down one of them. Then, he transmitted a message to Long Tianqing. Senior Tianqing, help me pin down one of them too. I will think of a way to get rid of one of them as soon as possible. They shouldn't be able to do anything in the heaven and earth great formation. Chapter 27-26. Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array, activate. After Night Sorrow spoke, the Cloud Ridge boss immediately understood. He silently chanted the incantation and activated the Heaven and Earth Spirit Gathering Array. After the array was activated, the demonic spirits that had once destroyed the 13 eagles of Cloud Ridge appeared once more. The mountain peaks that had been stacked together once more transformed into stone pillars that reached the heavens. However, the azure sky that had appeared the last time the array was activated did not reappear. Instead, it was replaced by thick black clouds that flashed with lightning and rumbled with thunder. It looked as if someone was about to undergo a tribulation. What kind of array is this? It looks a little strange. After the array was activated, one of the 4 black-robed divine kings immediately said warily. Didn't that person say that there is a formation here? It won't affect the overall situation. What we need to pay attention to is the sovereign divine weapon in Night Sorrow's hands. Said another as he charged at Night Sorrow, preparing to fight. The other 3 faced off against Long Tianqing, Jin Nia, and the 13 eagles of Cloud Ridge. A divine king? There aren't many divine kings like you in the divine world. Who exactly are you? Night Sorrow could tell from his aura that his opponent was a divine king, but even with the sea serpent's eye, he couldn't see through his opponent's identity. Haha. Since you're hiding your identity, it means you don't want to be exposed. I heard that you came from the lower realms and have the potential to become the next sovereign divine weapon. Today, this seat will kill you. The black-robed divine king sneered as he punched out. It was a simple and unadorned punch, but the aura it exuded gave Yi Shan a lot of pressure. Could this be the ability of a high-level divine king? Night Sorrow couldn't help but mutter to himself. His opponent's casual punch made him feel that he could only use Tianyun Bao to resist. At the same time, he activated the 33 Heaven's secret combat technique to increase his strength. Then, he unhesitatingly shot out the heavenly cloud arrow. At this moment, Tianyun Bao didn't drink any blood. This arrow was purely an experimental attack. He clashed with the black-clothed divine king's fist, but he didn't gain any advantage. He merely neutralized the punch. Haha. An ant will always be an ant. You only barely managed to block an ordinary punch from me after using a sovereign-level divine artifact. The black-clothed divine king's fist collided with the heavenly cloud arrow, and he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. This level of strength gave him great confidence. After all, as a divine king, he had an innate fear of sovereigns. He was extremely wary of sovereigns before taking action. The battle has only just begun. I hope you still have the same confidence when it's over. Tian Yun Bao's arrow only blocked his opponent's ordinary punch. Although Knight Sorrow was a little surprised, he did not panic. After replying, he used the ruler's stone he had just obtained to strengthen the other 8 sky cloud arrows. You dare to refine weapons in front of me? Is this a trap? Seeing Knight Sorrow brazenly refining weapons in the middle of a battle, the black-clothed divine king was astonished. He wondered if there was a conspiracy going on. At this moment, he felt his divine yuan energy being rapidly absorbed by the heaven and earth spirit gathering array. He immediately shouted, "The 3 of you, pay attention. The array before us is a little strange. You don't need to tell us that. We all feel it." The divine king, who was fighting Jin Nye, replied in an unfriendly tone. "At this rate, it won't be long before we run out of divine yuan energy. If we want to kill them, we must first break the array. That person said that this is the heaven and earth spirit gathering array and that it won't be that easy to break. We should attack with all our strength and quickly kill them. Number 1, are you confident in killing Knight Sorrow and seizing Tian Yun Bao?" The divine king, who was locked in a stalemate with Long Tianqing, asked. "If nothing unexpected happens, I can quickly kill him." The black-clothed divine king, who was called Number 1, coldly replied. Then he looked at Knight Sorrow and said, "I don't care if you're trying to be mysterious or not. This god will quickly kill you." He was still trying to figure out why Knight Sorrow was refining weapons in front of him, but after speaking, he immediately used a supreme technique. Empyrean Tiger Subduing Fist. At this moment, the 8 heavenly cloud arrows, which were being strengthened by Knight Sorrow, were still floating in the air. In the face of the high-ranked divine king's attack, Knight Sorrow tossed out the ruler's stone for the heavenly cloud arrows to absorb. Then, he held the Tian Yun Bao and used it as a melee weapon as he swatted it at his opponent. He knew that with his opponent's strength, his chances of escaping were slim, so he could only choose to take it head-on. The Samsara heavenly halberd was no longer enough to deal with such an attack, so he directly used the Tian Yun Bao. As for its effect, he wasn't sure. Using a sovereign divine bao as a melee weapon, you are truly wasting a treasure. Go to hell, ant. The world of the divine king is not a place where a divine monarch ant like you can wreak havoc. Seeing Knight Sorrow actually swatting the Tian Yun Bao at him, the divine king, who had used a supreme technique, scolded disdainfully. Then, he punched the Tian Yun Bao. Boom! There was a loud sound. The divine king, who had been full of confidence, was immediately sent flying. He felt as if his body was about to shatter. He said in disbelief, "What's going on?" "Just now, when a Dominator rank shot out an arrow, I received it." "How could I be sent flying?" Number 1. Are you stupid? Using your fist to attack a sovereign divine weapon? Do you think your body is as strong as a sovereign's? The divine king, who was fighting Long Tianqing, immediately said angrily. The way he saw it, a god king using his fists to strike a Dominator artifact was an extremely stupid act. In fact, that was exactly the case. The black-clothed divine king, who was fighting Knight Sorrow, was too arrogant. I was too careless. A sovereign divine weapon is indeed not simple. The black-clothed divine king, who had been injured by Tian Yun Bao, coughed up blood and immediately swallowed a few pills to recover from his injuries. At the same time, the divine king, who was fighting Jin Nye, pierced Jin Nye's shoulder with his sword and sent him flying. Then, he chased after Jin Nye, wanting to kill him. Seeing this scene, Knight Sorrow, who had already finished strengthening 8 heavenly cloud arrows, reached out and grabbed the heavenly cloud arrow. Then, he raised his hand and shot a heavenly cloud arrow at the divine king, who was still trying to kill Jin Nye. Buzz! The heavenly cloud arrow, which had been strengthened and repaired by the sovereign stone, immediately caused the void to tremble. The divine king, who had wanted to kill Jean Nia in one shot, would have definitely killed Jean Nia if he had continued to attack. However, they had clearly been hired by the ruler of all heaven and didn't want to risk their lives. Facing the heavenly cloud arrow, he immediately chose to give up on attacking and use his movement technique to dodge. However, he didn't expect that Tianyun Bao's arrow could automatically track him. Night Sorrow's heavenly cloud arrow followed closely behind, showing no signs of stopping. Chapter 27:27. On the other side, Long Tianqing and the 13 eagles of Yunling weren't in a good condition either. Yi Shan extended his hand and took out 2 heavenly cloud arrows. He shot them at the god kings they were battling, helping them share the pressure. At the same time, he saw that the god king he was fighting against had swallowed a pill and was using the pill to heal his injured body. Night Sorrow didn't choose to attack him immediately. Instead, he took out the other 2 ruler's stones from Long Wushu and started to heal the Tianyun Bao. According to what Long Wushu said, the Tianyun Bao had already consumed a lot of energy. If he didn't heal it quickly, not only would its power be greatly reduced, it might even be destroyed. When Night Sorrow was fighting the black-clothed divine king, he could feel that the Tianyun Bao was much weaker than before. He confirmed what Long Wushu had said. "And, instead of attacking me while I was injured by the ruler's divine weapon, you actually repaired it after you finished refining it. You really don't know what's important." The divine king, who originally wanted to say that Long Wushu didn't know what was good for him, recalled what he had just said and changed his words. "You are about to become a target, and you are still boasting shamelessly. What a joke." The black-clothed divine king gave Night Sorrow a lot of pressure when he attacked just now. If he hadn't used the Tianyun Bao to injure the other party, he probably wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. However, at this moment, Night Sorrow's confidence gradually rose. He could feel that the auras of the 4 divine king were continuously weakening. The auras of the 13 eagles of Yunling were continuously strengthening. At this moment, they were already extremely powerful. All of this was naturally related to the heaven and earth energy gathering array. Not good. The heaven and earth energy gathering array is becoming more and more powerful. We have to end the battle quickly. Everyone, don't hold back and use your best skills. Don't worry about whether we will be exposed. Realizing that the heaven and earth energy gathering array was becoming more and more powerful, the divine king, who was fighting Long Tianqing, said anxiously. At this moment, he was distracted by a heavenly cloud arrow and couldn't take down Long Tianqing, who was being guided by Long Wushu. Although Long Wushu didn't make a move due to Luo Tian's threat, his guidance was very important. Otherwise, Long Tianqing wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Good. I have a premonition that if we continue to delay, we will be defeated. The divine king, who was originally full of confidence, also became cautious. Quick! Save me! Save me! At this moment, the god king fighting the 13 cloud ridge eagles shouted with all his might. What's going on? The other 3 god kings immediately looked over and used the power of their souls to investigate what was happening. Wushu S's divine, Wushu, and Wushu was Wushu, Wushu S T. Ite of the Wushu S god. S Wushu Wushu, Wushu Wushu Wushu. You're so flustered. You don't look like the divine king at all. The divine king, who was fighting against Jean Nia, immediately mocked in dissatisfaction. It's my fault. The divine king, who had just shouted, apologized again. Why do I feel like your tone is weird? The divine king, who was fighting against Long Tianqing, questioned suspiciously. However, as soon as he opened his mouth, Long Tianqing found an opportunity and struck him with her palm. Don't get distracted again, finish off your opponent quickly. The divine king in front of Night Sorrow saw that he was injured and immediately reminded him. At the same time, he completely recovered and took out a king-level divine cauldron from his spatial artifact. He looked at Night Sorrow and said coldly, "Aunt, you will regret not making a move just now." As he spoke, he hovered the king grey divine cauldron above his head, preparing to launch an attack. "You think too much." Night Sorrow had a relaxed expression on his face. As he spoke, he poured blood into Tianyun Bao. After absorbing a large amount of blood, Tianyun Bao gradually grew a reverse scale. "Husband, this is my blood. Pour it into the bao." At that moment, Lin Piaomiao, who was in the clear sky pagoda, suddenly spoke and poured out a large amount of blood. "All right." At this critical juncture, Night Sorrow didn't stand on ceremony. He poured Lin Piaomiao's blood into Tianyun Bao as well. In an instant, Tianyun Bao, who had already improved a lot, blossomed with resplendent light. "Husband, there's mine too. I hope it will be of some use." Jingyun also didn't hesitate to pour out her own blood. Her bloodline was also very powerful. Of course, compared to Lin Piaomiao's paragon bloodline, it was definitely inferior. It's also effective. Looks like Tianyun Bao's appetite is very big. After Night Sorrow poured in Jingyun's blood, Tianyun Bao blossomed with even more light. Wu Lingfei, who was in the clear sky pagoda, immediately took out some of her own blood and said, "It's better than nothing. Give it a try. It can be considered as my contribution to everyone." "All right. Aunt Fei, I'll give it a try." Night Sorrow naturally wouldn't reject Wu Lingfei at this moment. He poured her blood into Tianyun Bao. Just as Wu Lingfei's blood was completely absorbed, the reverse scale on the body of the heaven cloud Bao had completely disappeared and was replaced by phoenix symbols. These symbols were different from the ones that had appeared before. After they appeared, they immediately turned into 4 small phoenixes that flew out and surrounded the body of the Bao. Tianyun Bao's bowstring also vibrated by itself. This is a sign that the sovereign artifact is about to be activated. Hurry up and do it, or we won't be able to resist. Luo Tian, who had been hiding all this time, immediately transmitted his voice to the 4 divine kings in battle when he saw the scene in front of him. What? The sovereign artifact is about to be activated? So it, which was so powerful just now, actually hasn't been activated yet. Upon hearing Luo Tian's reminder, the divine king, who was fighting Night Sorrow, immediately exclaimed in shock. At the same time, he controlled the King Grade Divine Cauldron and combined it with his own divine domain to suppress Night Sorrow. As an upper divine king, he was still very powerful when he didn't suppress his divine origin energy and used his divine artifact. Night Sorrow immediately felt his movements become slow due to the powerful interference of his divine domain. He, who was drawing his bow, was moving in slow motion. Haha. The difference in cultivation realm can't be made up for by a divine artifact. No matter how powerful a divine artifact is, it's a waste if no one is controlling it. Seeing Night Sorrow's movements, the divine king, who was attacking him, immediately became smug. Buzz. At this moment, the bowstring of the Tianyun Bao in Night Sorrow's hands suddenly vibrated violently. The divine domain that was suppressing Night Sorrow instantly vanished. He immediately shot out 3 heaven cloud arrows in succession. What's going on? Could it be that this sovereign artifact Bao has given birth to an artifact spirit? Tianyun Bao's self-vibration shattered the divine domain. The black-robed divine king, who was controlling the King Grade Divine Cauldron to suppress Night Sorrow, was instantly shocked. If a sovereign artifact like Tianyun Bao had given birth to an artifact spirit, they definitely wouldn't be able to resist. Chapter 27-28. Awaken an artifact spirit? If I awaken an artifact spirit, would have shot all of you to smithereens. The All-Heaven ruler snorted unhappily and reminded, they are relying on their bloodline power to temporarily awaken the Tianyun Bao. They are not invincible. The 4 of you, attack Night Sorrow with all your might. At the same time, he suddenly tampered with the Heaven and Earth Great Array, temporarily suppressing it. He then attacked Long Tianqing, Jin Nia, and the 13 Cloud Ridge Eagles, suppressing them. Because he was afraid of Night Sorrow, he didn't attack him directly. Yes. Lord Ruler. Realizing that his opponent was being suppressed, Long Tianqing's opponent immediately turned his spear around and attacked Yishan. Jin Nie's opponent did the same. Good timing. The three divine kings attacked him at the same time, but Night Sorrow didn't show any fear. He held 3 heavenly cloud arrows in his hands, pulled back the activated Tianyun bow, and shot a heavenly cloud arrow at each of the 3 divine kings. The moment Night Sorrow shot the heavenly cloud arrow, Long Wushu, who had realized that the All-Heaven ruler had attacked, immediately came out of Long Tianqing's spatial artifact and helped to restrain the divine king that Long Tianqing was fighting. Boom! The imprisoned God King had no chance to dodge the heavenly cloud arrow at all and was immediately struck by it. Half of his body, including his left arm, was blasted into pieces, and he let out a miserable howl. Divine Origin Dragon Lock Formation. Night Sorrow used the Divine Origin Dragon Lock Formation on the Divine King that Jin Nie was fighting. He knew that this formation wasn't much of a threat to the Divine King. It could only be used to catch them off guard. Boom! Just as Yishang had expected, when the God King was trapped by the Divine Origin Dragonlock formation, he immediately became rather stunned. By the time he tried to break through the formation, it was already rather late. The heavenly cloud arrow struck him heavily. His strength was the weakest among the 4 Divine King. His lower body, which reached his waist, was directly blasted apart. He looked very miserable. The Divine King, who was fighting against Night Sorrow, was not targeted. He used the Divine Cauldron to block the Heavenly Cloud Arrow's attack. Although his King-grade Divine Cauldron had been pierced by the Heavenly Cloud Arrow, he was not injured. Bastard! All of you are useless. Luo Tian had cheated to help, but the Divine King still suffered losses. This made him furious. However, he didn't want to completely fall out with Long Wushu. Thus, he didn't continue to attack. Die. At this moment, something that made Luo Tian even more enraged occurred. The Divine King, who was fighting against the 13 Eagles of Yunling, suddenly launched a sneak attack on the Divine King, who was fighting against Night Sorrow. The sword had actually pierced through his dantian. Moreover, after he lost the ability to resist, he reached out and crushed his divine sea, directly destroying his divine soul. What are you doing? How dare you betray this sovereign? Luo Tian gnashed his teeth when he saw the scene in front of him. The aura of a sovereign immediately erupted from his body. Betray? Hearing Luo Tian's roar, the Divine King, who was fighting against the 13 Eagles of Yunling, suddenly raised his head and smiled strangely. You are the person under the array? Luo Tian looked at the other party. When he saw the other party's smile, he immediately discovered something strange. It's me. I didn't want to come out so early, but you provided so much nourishment that I couldn't help but come out and absorb it. With a strange laugh, Lin Yunxi suddenly let out a roar. The area covered by the great spiritual gathering array was instantly filled with a bone-chilling roar. The Divine King, who was possessed by Lin Yunxi, directly exploded. After that, the demon spirit in the great spiritual gathering array went crazy and absorbed the blood mist in the air. In the blink of an eye, the God King was completely absorbed. What the hell is this? In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 4 godly monarchs targeting Yi Saro had been killed. The remaining 2 immediately felt their scalps go numb. Lin Yunxi, it's you. How dare you bare your fangs and brandish your claws in front of this sovereign? Die. He had paid a huge price to invite 4 divine kings to surround and kill Night Sorrow. In an instant, 2 of them died, and the other 2 were heavily injured. Luo Tian was so angry that he almost went crazy. He directly attacked the great spiritual gathering array. Not good. Night Sorrow, take note. He has an ulterior motive. Be careful. Long Wushu immediately shouted after Luo Tian attacked. Although the other party was attacking from thousands of miles away, he could clearly determine the other party's intentions. Senior, take the bow. Knight Sorrow knew that he couldn't block the attack of Luo Tian's sovereign, so he immediately handed over the activated Tianyun Bao. Haha. Good Bao. Let me have a taste of what it's like to fight against a sovereign. In the end, Heavenly Cloud Bao and Heavenly Cloud Arrow's Long Wushu laughed loudly and shot towards Luo Tian's attack. Boom! The Heavenly Cloud Arrow exploded in the air. However, Luo Tian's attack was also neutralized. As expected of a sovereign-grade divine artifact. Its power is indeed impressive. It can actually block a sovereign's attack. Again. Long Wushu waved his hand in the air. Under Knight Sorrow's instructions, 2 more Heavenly Cloud Arrows appeared in his hand. However, just as Long Wushu was about to attack again, Knight Sorrow reminded him, Senior Long, if Luo Tian doesn't attack again, we shouldn't take the initiative to attack. After all, there's another terrifying existence here. I, Lin Yinshi, don't want to be a sinner of the divine world. I won't attack you. At that moment, a cold voice rang out. At the same time, a ghostly figure appeared and killed the other 2 divine king. After that, she used her demon spirit to absorb them. It's best if you don't attack. If you want to harm Knight Sorrow, I will attack immediately. Although Lin Yinshi said that, Long Wushu, who was holding on to Tianyun Bao, was still on guard. After Lin Yinshi appeared, her methods were too cruel. He couldn't help but be careful. If I, Lin Yinshi, want to attack, all of you will die here. After absorbing a large amount of energy, Lin Yinshi's voice rang out again. At the same time, the area where the heaven and earth energy gathering array was located suddenly collapsed. A bottomless abyss appeared. After that, a transparent crystal coffin slowly rose from the ground. Before anyone could react, all the god's spiritual qi in the surroundings was absorbed by it. Even the light emitted by Tianyun Bao was absorbed. Bang! After the transparent coffin absorbed a large amount of god's spiritual qi, the lid of the coffin directly shattered. A red-robed woman with a blurry face but an enchanting figure stood up from the coffin. Looking at the sky, she said, Sovereign of Luo Tian, come and fight. Come and fight? Hearing this, Knight Sorrow and the rest were stunned. Even Long Wushu couldn't react. Her aura was clearly not that of a sovereign. She shouldn't have broken through to the sovereign realm. Yet, she shouted at Luo Tian and said that she wanted to fight. If you have the ability, come out and fight. Don't think that I don't know that you have the strength to challenge a sovereign in that array. Luo Tian, who was in the sky, replied with a cold laugh. Is that so? Then I'll go out and fight. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.